Ladies and gentlemen, it is 4 o'clock. I'm going to call this select board meeting to order.
Recording in progress.
Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via in-person and remote means. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting in person or virtually. The meeting may be accessed remotely via the link provided below. When required by law or allowed by the chair, people wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so in person or remotely. In the event that we're unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Topsfield website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And I was supposed to read that before I called it to order, so let me now officially at 4:01 call the meeting to order. And I will ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. Normally, we would do our moment of silence for whatever, but today I'm going to ask in particular for your silence in honor of the fallen Massachusetts State Police Trooper Kevin Traynor of Georgetown. Thank you. And I'll ask Madam Vice Chair and Clerk for any announcements.
So this meeting is being recorded by the recording clerk for the purpose of taking minutes.
I'm sorry for that, Chair. Chad, that's something was like.
Can you mute them? Okay. I'm gonna start over. This meeting's being recorded by the recording clerk for the purpose of taking minutes. Is there anyone else present who wishes to record the meeting?
Will you publish the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. While we're conducting town business using remote participation via Zoom, we ask that those of you not recognized by the chair or otherwise engaged in the discussion of the moment to please mute your microphone to avoid interruptions outside the
You can hear me,
conversation.
I can't hear you.
Thank you.
That was Chris.
Oh, Yule log lighting. Is that Chris?
Sounded like him.
That was definitely
Definitely
Mr.
sounded like
Ruggles.
Alrighty, we're gonna change your name.
To attendees of the meeting, a sign-in sheet is being circulated. The board asks that you please sign in to indicate your attendance at today's meeting. And those of you on Zoom, please make sure your Zoom name is accurate. And the select board meetings can be viewed by going into the cable videos icon on the homepage of the town website.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody for coming out, everybody for joining via Zoom. And
Can you see if Chris can join us visually?
I'd ask Member Ruggles if it's possible to turn your video on. Okay, I wanted to do a few things just before we get right into the meat of it, and I promise I'll be as brief as possible. First, I wanted to recognize there was somebody who did not get recognized at town meeting because they did not officially resign, but they are now not on the board. I definitely want to acknowledge Mr. Marshall Hook, who spent 6 years on the board, the work that he did, showing us a lot, steering the town, doing the best that he possibly could. So Marshall, you didn't resign, but still, here, I'll raise a fresca to you. I also want to recognize and congratulate the new board members, Mr. Greg Serino, Mr. Chris Ruggles. I'm sorry, you are under trial by fire right now. This is learning by drinking from a fire hose. We recognize that. We appreciate the time and effort that you've already put into the process and look forward to continuing to work with both of you. We normally reorganize at the first regular meeting of the year, which is also usually the first meeting after town meeting. and is not usually the first Tuesday after town meeting. The situation we're in is not normal. And for expediency, I would propose that myself as the chair and Ms. Mercier Link as vice chair retain their positions on a temporary basis. I promise we will return to this subject at a later date. Does any of the board members have objections to that?
I do not.
Okay. Now, my job, as I
No
understand,
objection.
thank you. My job will be to guide us through the next few days, hopefully coming out on the other side with a clearer path and a clearer plan forward. I'll ask my board and all those involved to be brief with the remarks and to the point. If I ask you to wrap it up or do one of these little things, please don't take it personally. We just have a lot of work that we need to get done in a very short amount of time. Now, to the citizens of Topsfield, I'll say the election highlighted heightened concerns regarding the balance between services that Topsfield, Masconomet, and Essex Tech provide and the affordability of those services. We are committed to working to find a solution that acknowledges the message delivered at town meeting and at the election, and that meets the financial demands that we are required to meet. In order to balance the budget, I anticipate that we will have to call a special town meeting in June and likely another election. Please stay tuned and reach out if you have any questions as we all navigate this process. Along those lines, normally we do not combine Zoom meetings with public comments or work sessions with public comments, reserving those for the regular meetings. This is more of a practice or policy. It is not strict rules that we have to follow. But as alluded to a moment ago, these are not normal times, and we need to hear more from you clearly. Since it's at the chair's discretion, I will open the meeting to public comment, but there are a couple of ground rules. I'd ask that each commenter limit yourself to 2 minutes to speak. Public comment is not meant to be a discussion, debate, or dialogue between or among citizens of the select board. Rather, it's intended to offer citizens an opportunity to express their opinion on issues of town business. While the board and/or administrators will not typically respond during public comment, the chair, as me, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to if I deem it appropriate and expeditious. Further, if we feel that the issue falls outside the purview of the board, I may request that citizens direct those questions to appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. This is not meant to shut folks down. The dialogue, the back and forth should absolutely happen. It's just not necessarily during public comment. As we have a lot to work to get done, I will cap citizen questions and comments at about 20 minutes, and I thank you for your understanding. But again, that is not to say we don't want to hear from you if we go beyond that. Just we need to get through the rest of the meeting, and I would appreciate if anybody does have more thoughts, please reach out another time. All right. So with that, I'd like to see if there are any public comments. Yes, Ms. Zilli.
Lily Hoosier, 47 North Street, and mostly I just wanted to thank you and the Finance Committee. I had to be absent at town meeting this year, which is unusual for me, outside of my control. So just thank you for all the work you did to get us to that finish line and in advance.
We're cleaning the windows already. Well, you said, you said, yeah. She's saying it's like, almost like, oh, nice.
The noise I'll have.
Looks like there was nothing there, so we.
I was gonna-
And do you have draft beer here?
I figured.
That's awesome.
That's funny. Anyway, just thanking
Can you let Bob
you
know I
and
need
all
to
the
do
town hall
that?
staff that put it all together in advance for what you're
No
going
worries,
to do.
no
I
worries.
also hope that when you do put together
No
what's
worries.
next, that there's
He's on the road here.
massive communication about the options before voters so that people are fully aware of what they're voting or not voting for and aware that they need to get out if they wanna have a say.
The deck.
Thank you. Anyone else, public comments? Yes,
No,
no,
I'm good. I'm just, Bob
Okay.
is raising his hand on the screen, which you probably, I don't know if you can see.
I can't see, no.
Let's ask to unmute.
Wait, let's finish with public comments and then I'll go to Mr. Metz.
I was
Yes,
just gonna ask
No,
if we
Bob,
could
can we finish,
make sure we have just
Yeah.
Can I just ask that we make sure we have one person talking at a time? So those of us that are off-site can hear clearly?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies, I was supposed to mention that. Evidently, the owl and the AIs get confused when multiple people speak at once.
Okay,
Yes.
Tony Pizzanato Hatfield, 96 North Street. I sent a note on the Topsfield page to your comment about, basically what happened. And I don't have, you can read it, but I'll just give the quick summary. My feeling is this is more like we need to be better educating the taxpayers about what they're spending. And so I have asked for a few years to have a meeting where the department heads can present to the town. And I think that's a public relations win, because we get to see the people who are actually providing the services to us, and we get a better idea of what the services are. I don't think I could really tell you all the services that the police and the fire and the public safety, that public works do. And if they can say, 5 minutes or 10, this is what we do, not extra work, they're already doing all these budgets with the select board and the FinCom, but a way for, maybe in March, for the townspeople to get together and to be able to hear directly from the town directors and the school directors, and then to ask some questions. So maybe there wouldn't be as much confusion, because I've been told by the time you get to the moderator meeting and town meeting, it's too late. But town meeting is when we all get together. So is there another time that we can get together and have some dialogue?
Thanks. I've got some thoughts. I'd love to connect if you want to shoot me an email and we can chat.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Any other board members? Anything to say before we dive into it? Any thoughts? Okay. Well, with that, let me turn it over to Mr. Hartunian to start the meat of the discussion, which is the town operating budget for FY 2027.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Welcome to the new board member. This is amazing. I think this is incredible that we have this much participation, and it's exciting for me. I was actually, and apologies for my being a few minutes late, I was with the Friends of the COA and the COA board meeting, addressing them this evening as well. And I said to them, and I mean this genuinely, I know the board feels the same way, there is nothing more important than an informed voter. Period, hard stop, right? That's what's most important. So having you here today, it means everything to me, and I know the board appreciates it greatly as well, because I know we're gonna have a robust conversation. We're gonna have a robust conversation this evening. We have a lot to cover. It's very tight timelines, which we will cover that as well. Around where we are today, or what happened last week, where we are today, and where we're going over the next 6 weeks. So with that, Mr. Chair, I wrote behind me on, it's a work session, so I felt it was appropriate. And my finance team, I want to give credit to Morgan Dwinell, Matt Hagan, Debbie, Morong in my office, as well as Tula, our assessor, our finance team, which has been working basically since Friday through the weekend until today, trying to prepare for what the next steps look like so that we can move very quickly, because the timelines you'll hear are very tight to get that STM in. So first thing, just to recap, I think everybody here knows, and that's why you're partly here, and many others, that Tuesday night, the request for additional funding for Article 3, 5, and 6 passed. So it was appropriated, but it then needs to be authorized at the polls, which happened on Thursday. All three of those questions, for question 1 was for the town override, which has been driven, the real driver is pension and health insurance, failed. The Masco Essex Tech override request failed, and the Masco debt authorization, which would allow Masco to get into the MSBA program and receive 40 cents on the dollar reimbursement, failed. I have an update on that. Did you get that update as well? Dr. Harvey, you texted me a little while, not that long ago about it. But as a result of that, tonight on the Masco piece of it, Masco is gonna be voting their budgets at their town meeting. I'm sorry, Middleton and Boxer are voting theirs tonight at town meeting. They'll be voting the Masco. That is within their tax levy. There's no override for both communities, meaning 2 out of the 3 communities have to pass a budget, and then the third community, if they don't vote for it, has to find the funds to pay for it. So what does that mean? That ultimately falls back then on the town's operational budget, town and elementary really, but town's budget to figure out how to solve for that problem. So right now, with that having failed and assuming it passes tonight, that $233,000 for the higher education override failure is an obligation for the town to come up with until we get to an STM if we so choose to do so. And then our what it said on the ballot was 317, but because of a modification at town meeting for the snow and ice to be removed, it was actually $260,000 that people are voting. Just a couple people I've talked with said it was confusing. I thought we voted the snow and ice out. Ballots get printed almost a month and a half in advance. So once a modification happens on the floor of town meeting, we can't update that ballot question. It is what it is. So you were actually voting to pass or not pass 260,000, not 317 technically. All that aside, right now the town is faced with a $493,000 shortfall budget gap that the town has to come up with. And that's with the assumptions where we are today. That's the budget side of it. The other piece of it, I'll just touch base quickly and update everybody regarding the Masco debt authorization. So Masco has been working for a few years now on a capital plan around the roof and the HVAC for the middle school and the high school. 2 years ago, they asked for $5 million for an OPM, which passed at Topsfield. It passed in
It's a owner's.
project manager.
Thank you.
It's the first step
I knew that.
in the process in Massachusetts when you have a large facility or building improvement project is to get an OPM. It's mandated by law. Middleton did not. Boxer, Topsfield passed it. So that actually failed. For that, you need 3 out of the 3 communities to vote it. So they did some really good work. They got into the MSBA reimbursement program where they would see 40 cents on the dollar for the program, its entirety. It was obligation is to all 3 towns to get that grant, call it, is to a reimbursement, is to have all 3 pass it. And we have until June 1st to do it. When it failed in Topsfield, it failed for the moment. However, Dr. Harvey, I've worked with the school committee, and the school committee worked really hard to get to MSBA and ask for an extension of 30 days. They said, if you can promise us there'll be a special town meeting and an election, we can't promise it right here in this moment, but it would look good in your efforts to try to get us another crack at it. And so we are anticipating a special town meeting because we have to. And so likely that question will be included in there. And I know Masco is going to be working really hard to work with their community and beyond our broader community to make sure everyone's informed on what that means and what the value is of voting that through. So there was those 3 questions. That's what the results were. And so what we are doing now and today is we have meetings scheduled for today, tomorrow, and Thursday, where our ultimate goal is to decide what we want to do in proposing an alternative. We have to have a budget. The town does. We don't have a budget. Elementary schools technically either. It's baked within ours, and ours failed, so the whole of it failed. But what we're going to do, hopefully in the next few days, Mr. Chair, is going to basically be looking at different options of how to structure our override request or not, if we decide not to have an override. And then secondarily, what does that look like if we do ask for additional funds and it does not pass? What will those cuts would then look like? How am I doing? Any questions from the board?
Good so far.
Good so far. I brought a lot of caffeine here, so we probably figure might be a longer meeting tonight too. So we'll go through everything step by step. Some of the immediate things we did. So yesterday, operationally, so when you see a storm coming in the horizon, you start to plan immediately what you're gonna do to prepare for it. And what the town did Monday morning, we had an 8:45 emergency department head meeting where we discussed an overview of what the impacts are and where we are as an organization, as the town. with regards to the fail overrides and that $500,000 roughly of a shortfall that we have to figure out and the steps we're gonna work on to go forward in the next 6 weeks. Additionally to that, I met with all of the department heads individually. I've had an opportunity to meet with department staff, firefighters, some of our finance team departments to just make sure people understand where we're at, because when people see such a big number that we're kind of come up with, people start thinking about what do those impacts look like for the organization, many times what it looks like for them as well. So the one thing I can say, and I said this to the team yesterday morning, I'll repeat it, the one thing that we have more that I'm most proud of as an organization is the team we've built and the way people work together. And I think that's something that we're gonna see in the town hall and beyond. Even though we're faced with some adversity that we have to figure out for this, I think the team's in the right place, right mindset, and the countless hours the finance team has put into this and the other departments in trying to figure out what we need to do is an example of that.
Question asked.
What is that?
Question asked.
It looks like there's other speakers. When I was on Zoom, people on Zoom could be heard. They're not all muted.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I think we took care of that, but then there's the special town, if there is a special town meeting, I think it needs to be asked.
I'd like to take those questions at the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think we'll open it up. But right now, so what we're looking at right now is I put in place also a hiring freeze, immediate hiring freeze, and a spending freeze. We do that most years anyway on the spending freeze side towards the end of the fiscal year, because every year over the last 6 budgets, we've cut the budget down, and our operational side, as you know, free cash is generated from the difference between the difference between budget to actuals. And because haven't come back to the town, we've cut the budget in different places, also found new revenues, different things to try to offset our costs to avoid coming to the town for more money. And as a result, our free cash number has gone, not this year because of certain one-time things, but we've seen the budget to actual component of the free cash shrink. And so knowing that there's a potential for a fiscal 27 significant drop in what we're able to put into the budget and ultimately a free cash, we talked about also immediate operational adjustments to try to make sure that we save every single penny, nickel and dime that we can. So when that storm's coming, we put the cans away in the basement in case we're stuck for a few days. I'm using a terrible analogy, but my point being is that we're preparing for this by putting the money away as we can. And like I said, we typically do this, but I think we're now looking at some operational adjustments potentially over the next 6 weeks as well. And this evening I could talk and share what some of those look like. I want to make sure the select board's comfortable with the strategy of saving today for tomorrow and also what some of that might look like.
If I may, I think the takeaway is, even though we're talking about the budget for next year, stuff that we do now impacts next year as well. So we are taking immediate steps to try and shore that up.
Right. Most of it's consistent with what we do anyway, but this year it's a little deeper and there might be some adjustments in operations over the next 6 weeks as a result that we haven't had to do in the past. So that's what we're doing in the immediate. That kind of brings us back to what we're doing right now in this meeting, which is trying to figure out what we're gonna do for fiscal 27 and what that override might look like. If you want, we can take a second if the board has any questions so far.
Nope.
So then the next step of this, and part of the conversation, is the schedule. So we have a really tight schedule to get to the finish line on this. Different things coming up, different components that are going to make it a little challenging, but up for the challenge as always. So we have, as we all know, there's certain statutory requirements, such as opening up the warrant for citizens petitions. That is a 14-day window we have to open up for any town meeting. There's also a 35-day period from when the election is. 35 days prior to that, we have to submit a final ballot question to the clerk. And we're also up against some scheduling at the end of June. I think when school gets out, in particular, I know that there's a vacation from the new moderator won't be available that last week of June. And so we have to look to the week prior to that, which is, I think, the week of the 15th of June, if I remember correctly.
Monday's the 15th.
Monday of the 15th. So with that in mind, the idea is that that's the week that we target to have a special town meeting and an election. And if we have a final ballot questions tomorrow, if we work through today and tomorrow and we have ballot questions, we'll be able to submit that to the clerk, and that'll back us into 35 days so that we can have the election, I think on that Wednesday or Thursday of that week in June. And if we open up the warrant tomorrow, 14 days to that would get us to the 27th of May, which is where we'll need to close the warrant, approve the STM warrant as it's written, print the warrant so that the next morning we can have it in the post office so that it's in people's possessions 14 days before the actual special town meeting. It's all baked into the sheet that Sam distributed, I believe, before the meeting. It kind of lays out what the deadlines are at this point to try to make sure we have a special town meeting within the parameters of the law and an election.
I think the takeaway is we're working backwards from our requirements. We do have some limitations again with the moderator, and then working backwards from there, we have 35-day, 14-day, 7-day, 7 days for the annual town meeting. It's all spelled out in our bylaws, which I'm sure everybody has memorized, and in state law as well. Just to mention what Mr. Hartunian was saying, what does that mean to open up the warrant? There is another opportunity, just like at annual town meeting, for citizen petitions. That's a requirement. So that has to be open for 14 days.
But it requires 100 signatures.
For a citizen petition, correct. Yep. Okay.
So that's the schedule. I think the first question for the board to start thinking about, and you have tight timelines, so want to be as thoughtful but as efficient as possible in the conversations. Is how do we want to handle the Masconomic Essex Tech secondary education?
I'd like to pause there first because there were some questions pertinent to what you were just talking about on the timeline. I think this is the right time to see if we can answer those. And to be fair, if there are questions from the audience, yes, Mr. Gant, or
Why are we looking at an election? Why are we concerned about having an election? Is it because of the Masconama debt? Or is it because of overrides, or what else? If I could just understand and maybe because we have to do this or we want to do that, just so we know.
And to be clear, we have not decided on that. We are voting on, we will get to that point where we vote on the best path forward. We are working back from the possibilities of that being needed. We don't want to get to the point where we're a week from now and decide we need an STM and then find out our budget isn't resolved or whatever because of X, Y, and Z until sometime in July, in which case we're in a new fiscal year as well. So we're just trying to keep every possibility open for the board.
So the town needs an STM for an approved budget, and the Masco needs a STM for their and election for their ballot question.
We're anticipating they'll ask for that.
One is more driven by timing. We have to have a budget.
Yep.
Whatever happens with the debt could be at a different time frame based on negotiations and things like that. So we're all on board.
Yes.
But those are the two potential reasons, and we may not need an election at all. That's also a possibility, right?
That has not been ruled out. You're correct. That has not been ruled out.
Thank you.
If I was a betting man, which I'm not.
Thank you.
If there is a special meeting, would the vote be on two separate items, i.e. one for the operating budget and one for the capital improvement? I'm gonna try and interpret this question, the capital improvement meaning the Masco debt, no.
So the only thing that'll be, so maybe I can just summarize this real quickly, because there'll be likely one question on STM, and that is for the town's operating budget. Why that is because at town meeting, May 5th, funds were appropriated for the Masco and Essex Tech to fully fund their request, including the override request. So that's already been appropriated. That does not have to be on a special town meeting again. It can just appear again for the election. In addition to that, the ballot, Article 45 at the 5/5/26 town meeting, that was for the Masco debt. That also passed and was, and it did not though receive the authorization at the polls. So that does not need to be on the warrant, is my understanding as well. So the only question for the warrant would be for the operating budget, not the capital. The capital has already been approved at the 5/5/26. Capital is usually a one-time item, using one-time funds, using free cash, for example. That was already approved. We're just talking about the raise and appropriate for the operating budget for the town.
With the caveat that the warrant will be open for 14 days, so we can't predict what any citizen may or may not do. Any citizen petitions that come to us over the next,
Yep.
once it's open, will also be on the special.
That's correct.
Okay,
I think that's the question.
alright, and if not, please reach out if we didn't answer that question and we will get you an answer. Yes,
Just to clarify the timeline, so are you guys planning to open the warrant today?
Tomorrow. We had to adjust when we post this on Friday,
So there'll be 2 weeks
Yeah.
from when you open it ASAP.
Mhm.
And then is there a period of time when you have to button it up and get it printed and sent again,
Yes,
just like the
there is.
regular?
Yep.
May
Is it
27th is
different?
gonna be a busy day for everyone.
What's the time- Like, so that, I'm just asking because it's different than regular annual town meeting, right? Because it's special town meeting. So you'll have a lead time,
So
is it 2 weeks? I
no.
guess I'm just asking like,
No.
what's the,
So if you work backwards from the timeline as well, we have a requirement to get the physical warrants into the hands of the citizens as well. So if we're working back from that, that's 2 weeks,
2 weeks, that's what I
or is it one week, 2 weeks?
2 weeks for special town meeting.
2 weeks for special town meeting, so we are potentially having finalize the warrant, print it and mail it in a 24 to 36 hour period.
You can do it.
we will. Thank you.
That's if the board decides to do, I'm being super cautious about presupposing anything, okay? All right, should we go to ballot question 2 and 3, or are you squinting at another? The basketball capital request, which was bundled with the operating budget. All right, I think maybe if someone reaches out, or Lynn,
Yeah, well,
I can't speak to what Boxford or Middleton did. Quite honestly, I'd wanted to go to that meeting, but I've been very focused on this one right now. So please, let's get back to Lynn when we understand the question a little better.
Yeah,
There was another question?
I would just like to hear your ideas first before we get into any details about what other people are concerned about. Just like state it first and then ask questions after.
exciting.
Okay. Should we go next? Kevin, you were saying questions 2 and 3.
Yeah, so the question for the first question for the board is, does the board want to see how it's been appropriated at town meeting, the full ask of Essex Tech and Masco's budgets? Do they want to, it's been appropriated, has been authorized, do we want to put that back onto the election, if we have said election for June?
I want it on. I would, any thoughts?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggles, Bob, I'm cognizant you're up there, any thoughts?
Yeah, the rejection of the Masco and the Essex Tech really isn't a decision about town hall, town operations, elementary school operations. It's really a decision about Masco and Essex Tech. And so if we just pass on that and say we'll fund that out of the town budgets, we're just accepting the responsibility for something that was not our doing. Now that may come to pass anyway, if it doesn't pass the second time, but for this point in the decision process, I think it would be kind of trying to pay for apples with oranges to not put it back on the ballot. So I'm in favor of putting it back on the ballot.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the other question is how?
So I think what we'll do is, so we'll have language that I'll probably bring to the board to vote tomorrow regarding what the question 2, which you could assume, if it's still question 2, we'll see if after the end of the conversation, if it's still number 2, but for the election last week, question 2, which was Damasco Essex Tech, it'll likely look exactly the same on the ballot, or something similar to, if not exactly. And we'll vote the ballot question as part of voting tomorrow, and then that'll be submitted to the clerk for that one. The second Masco component is putting back onto the ballot, which was question 3, the polls on 5/7, which was passed at Article 45 at town meeting on May 5th, which is to authorize Masco to begin their HVAC and roof project by hiring an OPM and allowing Masco to take out $1.738 million in debt to begin that process. That question will likely look exactly the same. And this, I'd say it's a little bit contingent on tonight's meeting with Middleton and Boxford. If either of those two voted down, we'll see what they end up wanting to do or not do, but the likelihood is that we'd want to have that question on if we want to give the taxpayers another opportunity to move it forward or not.
I think in terms of, again, this thought of optionality, it's better for us to move it forward, and then we can, if it becomes a moot point, it's a lot easier to take it off at that point, to then scramble to try and put it back on. And again, I'm not gonna presuppose anything that the board wants to do yet, but the starting point is going to be, it's using the same language, and if I understand correctly, at least for the ATM, and I'm assuming it's the same thing here, we can't change the language because that is the exact same language used in the other 2 communities. That is my only misgiving. The thing that I have heard from multiple people is that it was confusing, and maybe it's because we lived through it for so many days and nights. It looked clear to us, clearly it was not. That is unfortunately, I think, something that is going to be too long of a putt to change the language on that because of the other 2 towns. So it'll be just more better explaining, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yes.
May I just ask, I think what was confusing about that is, to me, there's 2 questions. One is, do you authorize to have an OPM to do this study for HVAC and roof? And 2, do you authorize to allow that interest not to be excluded from Prop 2.5? To me, that's 2 questions. So people may have said no, not to the actual OPM for the project, but to, I don't want you to exclude it from the 2.5, Prop 2.5. That's why I'm thinking if you have the chance to reword it, maybe you could split that.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hi, Adrian, I'm on Topsfield, for those that don't know me. I do know the MSBA was very particular about the wording, and they dictated how we had to word that for the town meeting, and I suspect they also want to put on the ballot. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, so
Yes.
I can verify that there was a lot of conversations between my 2 counterparts in Boxford, Middleton, the superintendent at Masconomic, as well as with MSBA. Working with the 4 of us, I'd say that we were confirmed multiple times that the language that was submitted by the and approved by MSBA, created, I believe, by legal counsel for Masco, was the approved language that we were mandated to use without modification. We were reminded that multiple times, so yes.
Makes it a significant hurdle, but I'm glad there are people here paying attention and willing to learn more about it, because we are happy to explain it until the cows come home.
But may I just make the point that people who went to the polls, right, and they voted, and now we're gonna use the same questions and ask for a second vote, that doesn't seem right. People voted the first time, and now we're trying to get a different answer asking the same question a second time. That's what I would think.
Ms. Fox.
I think it behooves us, as people that are familiar with this, to educate. What happened at town meeting was that the debt was authorized. What happens at the ballot is that We are saying, when you incur this debt, the amount that we are going to be taxed is gonna be excluded from Prop 2.5. Both the debt, we appropriated that. We said that we were willing to incur that debt, but we have to say that when you incur that debt, it's gonna be in addition to what is taxable under Prop 2.5. Am I interpreting that correctly? So,
Yeah, and so, thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Metz.
The wording can be an obstacle, but basically, we're not we wouldn't be voting on the wording, we'd be voting on the concept behind the wording, should we have this project? And I think it's incumbent on the Masco School Committee and the Masco administration to have at least one major information session for the public to explain the project additionally to people that may not have caught up with it, and to explain what's really behind the wording. And I think that ultimately is the solution, is public outreach by the knowledgeable people from Masco. And that's the solution for both the debt exclusion and the Masco Essex Tech override, is to get out there and explain to people what this is for in more practical, plain English, so they can understand the value. And so I'm glad Catherine and Adrian are here tonight, because I'm hoping they're getting ready to put some information sessions together and carry that banner. Thank you.
So because we've authorized the debt, we would now need to pay for it out of the money within Prop 2.5, within the operating budget. Do we know what dollar amount that would be annually? No, okay.
Off the top of my head, not yet.
Okay.
We've done some, there's a lot of, it's a great question, it's the obvious question, like, okay, so how much is this? Like, what does it mean? It is a challenge though, because interest rates fluctuate, and how you structure the debt, how Masco decides to structure the debt, and when they take the debt are all pieces of it. I know that there was a little bit of a back of the napkin sort of ballpark. I don't wanna speak to it because I don't know how real a number it is. I don't know, Amanda, do you have any thoughts? Nope, okay,
TBD.
we don't feel confident sitting here right now. Masco might have a better handle with their financial advisors if and when asked at a public meeting, like, what do you guys think? They might be able to give a little bit of a range of what that cost looks like.
And the other thing to keep in mind is
Masco needs to do some scenarios and present them to the public.
we'll get to next plans. We're focused on the next couple days right now. Mr. Larson, I wanted to give you a chance. You had your
One
hand
thing
up.
I noticed on the ballot, there's no place for verbal explanation, is there?
No, sir.
And I didn't know if that was a possibility, but it's only the question. There's no chance to educate the person who comes in, you know?
We looked at it a little bit last year, like, we put a little bit more explanation. We were warned not to do that with those because they don't wanna.
The warrant.
You don't wanna, right, the ballot questions, we do with the warrant with the explanation, we were warned not to do that in the ballot question only because it could be perceived as you're trying to influence one way or the other. And it was very particular last year, what we did to it to kind of make sure it didn't have that impact. So it's about educating yourself prior to, honestly. It's reading the warrant, it's coming to our, these meetings that we're gonna have and coming in informed, that's the bottom line.
And us getting the message out better. Yes.
I hate to do this, my first meeting, I like to ask stupid questions.
No, that's fine. That's how you learn.
It occurs to me that,
No stupid question.
I have stupid questions. It occurs to me that we might produce a handout at the ballot that is more explicit or more easily explained what we're trying to fit on the ballot, that explains the pros and cons, that it says, this is why we're doing this.
I agree that needs to be done. We need to look into the legality in terms of what we are allowed to do. We are trying to give options to the town, not to influence the
I'm not saying
decision.
influence, I have
Yeah.
pros and cons, but a better explanation than is
Absolutely,
allowed.
one way or another, need a better explanation. As follows.
so you're not, or are you considering putting that question again on the warrant? That's the thing. It already passed, but it was on the warrant, it was contingent on the Prop 2.5 exclusion. So so people can't vote again on saying no at the special town meeting, because you're not putting it back on the warrant.
The idea, I have spoken with legal counsel about this, is that questions 2 and 3, because they were voted favorably at town meeting on 5/5/26, do not need to be on the special town meeting. But they do need to be on the ballot if they're to be moved forward in any way.
I'm hearing a slightly different question, though. They don't need to be, but will we? I think that's a discussion to be had, right? Will that help with the communication? Will that help with people understanding, hey, we're not just throwing the same thing at you, wanting a different outcome? If there's more dialogue that needs to be happened, then I would suggest that the board seriously consider that. I'm not gonna promise a yes or no either way on that, but it's worth the discussion.
So we'll check with KP Law on our ability to, at minimum, could we have something that says if you vote yes, this is what you're voting for. If you vote no, this is what you're voting for.
On the ballot or on the warrant?
Well, either a separate piece of paper or on the ballot.
So my understanding is as long as it's not part of the voting institution, I guess, in a way. So if there's people who put something together like Mr. Serino said, would be like a handout that the school committee or somebody, a group could provide at, like when you're holding the signs outside of St. Rose, in the same sense, people could be able to provide literature. That's my understanding. We can verify though with KP though.
Like for the school committee, like we cannot pay to have anything printed. So an outside interested party can pay to have something printed. We cannot.
Right, like a committee or individuals. So individuals can do that. There was letters that were sent out during this process.
And as much as I would love to change the language, because again, we've heard it was very confusing, we are slightly tied by MSBA requirements and by what the other towns have done at this point. Okay, was there, yes, Mr. Metz?
If we're trying to get more information to the public, I still think some Masco information sessions are necessary, but we could give them time, even if they're not on the warrant, we could give them time at the special town meeting to explain it as best they can within 20 minutes or so.
I love all the suggestions. I do want to remain focused on the next 36 to 48 hours though, and I feel like that is not one of the priorities for the next 36 to 48 hours. But I'm coming across as a jerk, but no.
So
you're keeping us running, that's good.
Mr. Chair, I think so just to recap where we are, for the special election that we're gonna have in June, we would look to
might have in June.
haven't voted. Put on a question for the overriding Masco and Essex Tech that was agreed upon by the select board. The question to be voted formally tomorrow, likely, once I have it for you. 2 would be that the board is comfortable putting back on the debt exclusion question for Masco, likely as it was presented at the election last week on as well. Is that fair to say?
If we have the information from Harvey that that it's worthwhile doing, we have a chance.
I don't know, we did get confirmation today, about an hour and a half ago, from Dr. Harvey that he had a conversation with MSBA. They said if we pick a date for an election, there's a not written confirmation, but verbal confirmation that they would likely extend us to the end of June.
I appreciate that. That was in between Zoom and in person.
100%.
And again, maybe it was I think we go forward with this because it's better to have it or easier to have it and take it out.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then if the other towns don't approve it anyways, it might become a moot point.
So I will then, as we prepare the material for tomorrow for the vote, I will prepare that question as well. Okay. Okay, and that then I think brings us to question 1 from last week's election. So just to reiterate where we are, because of this, the way we.
My apologies. I have one question on the previous point, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll recognize Brof. Can you say your name and address, please?
Yeah, John Brophy, 10 Sleepy Hollow. And forgive me, I think this is kind of been addressed, but I want to make sure it's clear to me. What was voted on at the town meeting, that's what actually appropriates the money. The real question is whether this is going to be on the Prop 2.5 or whether this is going to be a debt exclusion. Is that correct?
So,
No,
the money was, the ability to take out the debt for this was appropriated. The authorization to go forward was not voted successfully, so we're missing the second step of the two-step process for them to be successful. I don't know if that answered your question back.
It does. So basically, if it's voted down again, we're not still up. What I want to be sure is if we vote it down again, that the money isn't going to be basically reduced from the town budget and subsequently you require reductions in the operating budget of the town to cover that outside of 2.5.
can I take a crack at this?
Yes, please do, Mr. Metz. Go ahead, Mr. Metz.
He's frozen.
Yeah, there's two things there's two things for Masco that were on the ballot and that were voted at town meeting. One is the debt exclusion, which I think you have your hands around now. The override for operating purposes, that was also voted favorably at town meeting, but down at the polls. That's a separate issue, and that was also, but that is a case where if it does lose again at the polls.
I don't think that,
and the other
if
two
I can just
towns-
interject, I don't think that was the question, Bob. I think the short answer was
Alright.
no. It had nothing to do with the operating budget at Masco.
So, Mr. Brophy, the answer is this.
I do believe that's probably valuable information, if you don't mind just finishing this point.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Yeah, if the operating budget for Masco Essex Tech gets voted down, and the other towns voted, then we will have to take that out of our own town hall, town operations budgets.
So, Mr. Brophy, has to go 6 for 6 to be able to take the debt out, meaning they have to have 3 town meeting approvals, Topsfield, Middleton, Boxford, and 3 votes at the polls favorably in Topsfield, Middleton, and Boxford. We were 1 for 2, so that's the second step didn't happen.
But if we
But it won't affect the operating budget. If it doesn't, the 6 doesn't happen, it won't have an effect where the money will still be drawn down. It could have an effect if the HVAC stopped working or roof started leaking before money was appropriated for the capital project, but that would be unknown until something like that were to take place.
And if I'm hearing your concern is if we appropriate it at town meeting and then don't vote for it at the ballot, do we still have to pay for it out of somewhere else? And the answer is no.
On the debt. On the debt.
The debt, yes,
On the debt only,
yes.
With question 3.
That was, Mr. Brophy's question was about the debt. Yeah. Okay. Should we keep going?
If you're ready, Mr. Chair, we can.
I am ready. Okay. What is the current status in dollars of the stabilization free cash? Could they be utilized to cover the cost without a reduction in the town operating budget? I think we'd have to get the numbers.
The answer is no. So you can't,
Okay.
those are one-time funds and the operating budgets are reoccurring. That you need to raise and then appropriate those funds versus using one-time funds to bridge a gap. Many communities that have done that, which is against DOR regulations, find themselves later having to ask for much more money in overrides to bridge that gap when they fill it with one-time free cash versus raising the funds.
Okay.
Good question though.
Once, twice. Okay, then I'm gonna move on. Quick, before someone thinks of something else. No, I'm kidding. Where does that lead us to next?
So the last question is probably the most challenging one in the moment is the town operating budget. And what do we want to do moving forward? I said at the top, I'll just reiterate a couple points. The override, even though the question said 317, well, it was appropriated at town meeting. Authorization did not take place. to allow for the additional funding. It was listed at $317 because the reduction at town meeting was actually a $260,000 ask. Our health insurance and pensions, health insurance went up $354,000 this year, real dollars. Pensions went up 144, so $500,000. Town covers just a little shade more than half of the cost of from the town side, and the other remaining amount for pension health insurance is on the elementary school. It's in our operating budget, and so we have that cost center for all employees in the town, and those were the biggest drivers for the operations. And part of the reason we proposed the budget as it was not because there was added services or a significant increase in what we were doing, but more 18.25% increase last year in health insurance. Trash over the last 3 years increasing significantly. We stabilized that to 4% increases with the new contract, but there were some significant hurdles the last few years where we cut the operating budget down. And as a result, there really wasn't much room this year in our capacity to be able to bridge a gap when we had Essex Tech coming in with a larger number than what was in the financial guidelines from FinCom. And unlike Middleton and Boxford, we could not cover the additional costs for Masco in our levy capacity. Our guideline was 2.25, same with the schools. Schools were able to make sure their operational budget was within that 2.25, which was, I know they did some really hard work to get there. And the town did as well. We had a higher number that we started with, and we cut in certain areas. And ultimately though, there just wasn't enough, unless we started diving into some of our core budgets, line items, a lot of capacity to move down. And the select board had a lot of good conversations, healthy conversations over the 9 months from the start of the process to when we went to print about, what we wanted to get down to as a target without asking too much, hopefully, of the taxpayer. At least that was the intention, right? So we have tonight a conversation of really amounts to 4 options. One, we don't ask for any override. We cut $260,000 out of our operating budget, and we still need an STM budget appropriation because we need to itemize what that looks like. But we could make those reductions. The second option is we put back on the warrant an override request that amounts to 260, but breaks out what we feel is some of the core structural elements of what we have in our budget that would get cut if it fails. And then a second override question for possibly a couple of particular items. Finance team and I have been working around this, something potentially like the additional firefighter or the planning support position as a second override. So A and B. And then the other option is somewhere in between, where we say, you know what, we're not going to put forward the firefighter for the planning support this year. Maybe there's another couple areas we want to make a reduction in, but we come in with a lower number on the override request that shows some additional movement. I just want to remind you, we had these conversations, many meetings of this. We have not produced the free cash numbers out of our budget to actuals the last few years to keep pace with our financial policies because we've cut our budget to avoid those overrides. Our budget to actuals, even though most years we put spending freezes on in the last quarter or the last month or two anyway, we're typically been trending downward over the last 5 years in what that number, 600,000, 400,000, 300,000, and we're projecting somewhere south of 300,000 right now. Part of the reason we're making some of those operational changes, not just spending and hiring freezes. The next 6 weeks, we're also looking at op changes to reduce some of those costs. They're not going to make a giant dent, but every penny counts. Like I said, every penny, nickel, and dime, we got to count them. So, any reductions, further reductions in what we propose, and we had this conversation to kind of reiterate the point, could have some impact down the road when it comes to that free cash certification. Ultimately, could hinder our ability to put money into stabilization accounts at our financial policy levels. And when we take out debt this fall, could have an adverse effect on potentially our AAA bond rating being derated. I don't know that for a fact, but those are things that we think about, the finance team talks about, to make sure we're putting ourselves today and tomorrow in the best financial position.
If I can just take the privilege of 2 things. One, people may hear a lot of stuff, we are gonna have a lot of ideas. That does not necessarily mean they are good ideas or ideas that we're going to accept, but it is our job to come up with every single possible idea that we think is reasonable. When we get to the point of voting, that's when we're just saying, this is what we think the best path forward is. Second privilege I'm going to take is I think there are two bookends, right? One is what was appropriated at town meeting, the 260,000. Do I think that has a chance of going? I think is a separate question. But since it was already approved at town meeting, I can see a rationale for putting that forward as an option. The other one that I've heard loud and clear, I'm sure many of you have as well, is tell me what I'm going to lose. So I think we have to have a zero. And then that to me bookends where we are. I think the harder work is then where is that middle number in between, or is it two middle numbers? Any thoughts on the approach? Let's just say approach here.
I agree.
No, I agree entirely. It's those are the options.
Bob, any thoughts on approach or disagreements or?
I think it would be insulting to come back with 260,000. I think people have expressed their opinions pretty strongly about new hiring in the face of an override. So I wouldn't want to come back to 260. I think if you take virtually take almost the entire admin out of the planning board, and you take the third fireman out, and you take out a fairly comfortable safety factor that we had built into the health insurance and reduce it to a little more narrow safety factor, I think between those three things, we can get the 260 down to 84,000 or an amount under 100,000.
Bob,
And I think that's
you're jumping into the middle
enough of a
part.
change, so we could. Okay, so I think we should come up with an override that'll be under 100,000. Come back with that, and if people vote against that, then we'll just have to take it out of our departments in a percentage across the board way.
All right.
And I say percentage across the board way because I don't think we would have time to pick out individual elements of individual departments.
Just a moment. Okay, so Bob is saying no to the 260 and figure out zero later. I think we have to figure out zero now. Or if not now, certainly in the next week or so. Maybe that's not the 36 to 48 hour. What does zero look like? But I am going to do my darndest and commit as chair that we will have a zero option. Whether we like it or not is a different story. But what will it look like? So now then, Bob, you're just always ahead of the time. Now I think we're going into the meat of it, which is what are those middle options? If I'm understanding Bob correctly, that's where you were going, right?
So Mr. Chair, could I make I've had, going back the last 36 hours, I've had a significant amount of conversations with my department heads. We've gone over the budgets, both this year, next year. As for next year, my finance team, our finance team, and the department heads, I think we have some immediate things that we would propose that are, I think, aligned with Mr. Metz's comments. Spoke with the fire chief, and we do believe we spend a lot of hours relative to the firefighter, understanding the need and what it would do. It generates some more revenue. It provides that next level of safety for when the first call goes out, the second call comes in. Also, if we're not able to fill that second shift, to have a second person on during the busiest hours, data-driven decision-making, putting a person on during the days for 3 to 4 days a week. That's what that position was set up to do. Make sure we're professional, continue to professionalize the organization as much as we possibly can, and ultimately create the safest levels of service. That said, I think we'd like to pull that from consideration and not have that as part of the override, because we want to request support to apply for a SAFER grant, which would cover the costs for a firefighter or two for 3 years, including the benefits if we're successful. I know Chief Collins Brown is here today too. I don't know if Chief, you wanted to comment about the opportunity if we applied for that grant.
Thank you. I just think that we showed very much how we don't meet any minimum safety standards for our personnel. We ask them to do a lot with a very little. So I offer that withdrawal of that position for this budget. Very hard decision, and but I understand the big picture. It does not minimize at all the fact that we don't meet any safety standards for our staff. And so I'm committed, as I always am, in finding alternative funding. So in the past, we have applied for the SAFER grant, not successfully. We haven't done it in the last 2 years. But that is 100% coverage of the salary and benefits for 3 years of those people. And so I don't feel any less committed to the position. I don't feel any less committed to the need, but I understand everything that's happening, and I offer that for now.
Okay. Thank you. And I do want to recognize that Chief is one of our best grant grabbers, getters, has one of the best success rates around.
He's the champ.
Yes.
So we're down to 260.
Oh, she's the champ. I said.
200.
Oh, yes.
I said she's the champ. Yeah.
Right. So I do want to, I know, Bob, you had a different number in there, and I think this is important. Are we looking at 80,000, which I think if you look on the omnibus, there's a number of 79 something, but that is netting X, Y, and Z. So what we really want to focus on is the net.
$60,000 is the cost of that firefighter.
$60,000.
And that's without any revenue to offset it, which we were also not underwriting the revenue side.
Correct.
It probably would be close to net neutral cost, but we understand that there's other opportunities, and we've heard that the number was something we have to work on. So that was a place, echo the sentiments. We've spent incredible amount of time and hours, both as an organization, understanding what this would look like, the need, working with our full-timers and our call firefighters to be open and transparent about what they have told us time and time again they need. But we have an alternative, not like this is unique. We do have the grant opportunity, which we have not been successful. We have looked to it in the past. But we have to make changes. People have spoken, and we want to make some movement, and that's a place that we're.
And then just correct me if I'm wrong, though, then the goal then would be that we still get the position, it's just not coming out of the town budget.
If the select board supports the application, then yes.
I have a quick question on this. So just to clarify a couple of points, I just want to make sure it's clear. Today, we do not meet the minimum safety requirements.
Correct.
And if we do not put this new firefighter on the ballot award again this time, and you want to go for the SAFER grant, can we do that this year within this budget cycle? Or do you have to wait till next year?
No, it's that part of the federal government is still shut down. So that grant opportunity would have already been open had that part of the federal government, Homeland Security, been open. So it is up to the President of the United States to open that branch again. So I can't speak to what the timeline is. So it is way overdue, but it's because that part of Homeland Security is still shut down.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Mr. Brophy.
Yeah, just one quick question, and then I'll probably have a follow-up based on the answer. Do we have the opportunity to change the wording somewhat? And what I mean by that is this. The Article 1, it was not singular in nature, right? It had multiple different positions. Could we break that up into single items showing what the impact will be on the taxpayer? So it almost creates an a la carte system, right? So if somebody supports the fire department position, right, they can vote for that, and maybe they don't support the other two. You know, when they're grouped in like that, it kind of forces you to levy certain issues against others.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer is yes.
We talked about that as one of the options of the four is go for the full 260, but just carve out these two positions from the remaining. I know that Mr. Metz had indicated we need to bring that number down. Talking with the chief, the finance team, this was painful. We spent incredible amount of time putting this together and proposing this and knowing it, reducing operating budget in other places to offset these costs, but you know, this is, when we talk about what is in this budget, technically, yes, this is a new position. Offset with some cost savings in other places and budget reductions and revenue that we didn't underwrite because we were being conservative, that might have made it net zero cost. But hearing that with the override failing, this is the first tier is the way we looked at the finance team, we looked at it, what's new services, this and the planning support. What's the things that we're trying to replenish from last year's significant cuts, because at the 11th hour, we had to cut 145 out of an already bare bones budget. Replenishing some of the healthcare costs, healthcare components of it, as well as with the road, bridge, and sidewalk, and a couple others. And then the third is what cuts do we look to? Where do we go negative? And so when you look at it from that perspective, this position, and I would also now recommend that the planning support in the value of $23,000 gets eliminated out of consideration for the override.
Okay, just on that, I mean, my position, I know a lot of people's position that I've talked to, it would be appropriate to allow people to vote on a single item. And I'll speak specifically to the position of the fire department. As somebody who has pretty extensive experience working through SAFER grants and getting SAFER grants, it is a process. It's a long process. Is there a ton of value to it? Absolutely. Do I think that we should be going through that process? 100%. But to levy the safety of not only the community but also the firefighters who commit to responding to this community, putting it all on the hopes and dreams that we get a SAFER grant, personally, I feel is inappropriate. We don't meet any of the staffing standards across the country, so it creates a very dangerous situation. And I think, Kevin, you kind of touched on it. There's a very strong possibility that the revenue that would be generated by the ability to capture, the revenue from that second call that we would typically miss is likely to actually cover the cost. So that's why I would be in support of having each one of these positions, especially the full-time firefighter position, be a separate standalone item. And even to kind of expand further on the grant, if down the line a grant was awarded for staffing, whether it be for an additional position or up to 2 positions, or whatever you put the grant in for, you would be allowed to eliminate the position that's already in the budget. You're not allowed to eliminate the positions that you gain from the grant, but theoretically, if we put this one firefighter on, next year we apply for a SAFER grant and we get it, and let's say it's one, or let's say it's 2 people, you could then eliminate this one position and maintain the 2 positions that you technically get under the SAFER grant.
Okay, thank you.
So
just clarify one thing for Mr. Brophy, please. We looked at actual data about simultaneous calls during the shift that this theoretical firefighter could work, and it was not enough to cover the cost of the position. It might be in the range of 1/4 to 1/2, but it was not likely to cover the position.
All right. Thank you. And I think more to the point, as was mentioned, we did not consider the revenue because that's not a guarantee. So that's a conservative thing. So whether it covers it fully or not, it was not considered. Mr. Link.
So the 60,000 is a net of various other offsets to bring the fully loaded cost of the firefighter down to the 60,000 net. Is that correct?
It's the net cost to add the position. There would be some other reductions in other places if it was to come on.
So if you're potentially unwinding this position, are you unwinding those other offsets?
Yes, that's why we're talking. My brain, it's simpler to keep it, what is the net impact on the total town budget? As well as what is the net impact on services?
And one more. Teammates have a question.
Chair McDonald, just curious if that were, as Mr. Brophy was discussing, if that were to put through and that position was funded, are there still going to be department cuts for jobs to cover the rest of the problem with the budget? So if that were voted through, is that still going to be added a position while others might be cut? I have a position right now that happened to just leave. I had it posted. It's an integral part of us, especially in snow and ice, that at the moment I can't fill.
I can only say personally, I would not feel right if it passed for a specific position to then not to use that money for something else. I could not do that.
The hiring freeze would, if we are successful in funding going forward, starting in July, the operating budget with additional funding coming in, whether this firefighter is in or not, the hiring freeze would likely be undone. If we're unsuccessful with any additional funds beyond the FinCom guidelines, so no override, because it's healthcare and insurance, we then have to look at some of what our current operations looks like and modifications to that. So it's really contingent on what the future looks like. It's contingent upon whether the town would want us to, how they want us to operate.
With respect to the chief, because I'm sitting right next to her, and the position, would that mean the position is filled for the fire department but not for the highway department?
If the 260 was to pass, which is what we asked for at town meeting and failed at the polls, we would be able to fill your position and add a firefighter. So 260 gets us everything. Now, if we see deep cuts, there was the option of no override whatsoever. That's the only scenario. I can't see one where the firefighter goes into play and the DPW is not able to add back what we already had. It's yours, they're kind of tied together in a sense, but yours would be filled before the chief's firefighter would.
But the possibility is still there that I cannot fill that, and that could be that position for obvious reasons. Public safety goes in. I would contend that still my department, for 3 months at least of the year, that's a public safety issue. That person is one of the drivers of the truck that I didn't get, that is a CDL driver and goes out first thing in the storm and the last truck in.
Yep.
So it's a crucial thing if we're going to separate these things out. As a department head, and my staff is rightly so worried of what's going on. I just find that a little unfair, and I know we're in a big world and we have to figure these things out. But that position was already there. And we're being asked, and I understand, not to fill it right now. Certainly at least till the end of the fiscal year.
That's right.
But I would like to think that if one were being given to another, then there should be consideration somehow. And I'm not a resident here, and there still may need to be cuts, but I just find it tough to swallow and take back to my staff to explain that.
That's why the first tier is if we're gonna eliminate our 260 number and drop it down, as Mr. Metz said, firefighter and the planning support are the first two off the docket, unfortunately. Doesn't feel good at all, because we know, but we will do what we need to get a budget passed.
But that means we have to write it that way, because it's possible that one passes and the other does not.
That's why I'm suggesting my recommendation, the finance team, after 36 hours, mostly straight discussions, are recommending not putting the firefighter or the planning support position on the next round of ask for the town. We eliminate it, and we come back next year, we don't come back at all.
Okay.
And then everything else, so the things that are either replenishing, like road, bridge, and sidewalk, which we cut last year to get balanced. It's a $70,000 line item. It should be a zero after that, because there's so much work we need to do, but we cut that 70 in half to balance. I appreciate Mr. Wild's efforts at the 11th hour last year to get there. I promised him personally that we'd make every effort to replenish that. This year, we couldn't even do that, so I put half in. And now we're gonna suggest taking that out as well.
Well, that's where we are. There's one more question here about the benefits associated with that firefighter position. 60,000 was net of everything, right?
Right, we built it into the health insurance plan, which my recommendation is gonna be to eliminate 2 of those as well.
So there is more than just the 60,000.
It's 60,000 in the fire operating budget, but we built in a plan in the healthcare, because that's where the plant that lies.
Yeah.
So it's in the operating budget,
Okay,
just not in the fire budget. That's not where we allocate funds for health insurance.
so it's a good distinction.
Yeah, it's covered in there.
Wait, sorry, just.
Kathy Bernada. Kevin, I spoke with you at the moderators meetings and with you, Jenny, you both kindly gave me the report, the fire department report. And one of the things I'm hearing for the first time is about the minimum safety standards. If you guys could just point me in the direction, because one of the things I've been trying to understand is the justification. I think we've added 4 firefighters in the last 5 years, I don't know. And now this will be a 9th firefighter, or a total of 9 firefighters, if I'm correct. So for me, it's the justification. So if you could point me in the direction, A, of where I would find information on these minimum safety standards, and also numbers, stats, which I didn't find in that report, on calls that are answered for the ambulance calls as well as fire calls. It's broken down percentage-wise, but I don't have specifics. And I would love to see that somewhere. Is it buried somewhere on the website?
We can pull that information.
Yeah, it's in our annual report, you
Well, you
could read
sent me
that.
the report,
No,
but
that was my finance committee presentation.
Okay.
If you look, I can send you links to OSHA regulations, NFP 1710 and 1720 for staffing.
We'll get that.
Mr. Granado, what I would just say on those 4 firefighters added over the last 3 years, we went to primary ambulance transport,
I
which is a
understand
revenue generator about $500,000. 20% of that goes into an ambulance stabilization. It's allowed us to pay in cash for a fire engine and an ambulance with the revenue generated out of the service, not out of tax. Well, piece of it came out of taxpayer with free cash, but piece of it got covered by the revenue rather than asking for its entirety. The 4 firefighters were in it with the 75% of what we've annually are able to earn on the revenue covers the cost for those additional 4 firefighters. So we went to primary proof of concept first. Most towns add the staff, then do it. Our people put themselves out there and on the line, the chief as well, and everybody to prove the concept so that we can then add those firefighters by showing we do have the revenue to offset it. So I know those added positions, but they weren't added they were added in the operating budget, but offset on the revenue side eventually after the 3-year rolling average caught up.
a follow-up question to that is, I know that Boxford has 5 full-time firefighters that do not have the ambulance service, and I recognize that.
That's correct.
Has there ever been any kind of cost-benefit analysis in terms of us having the ambulance service versus just going back to contract service?
Yes, there has. It's about $1 million swing for the town cost-wise.
Okay,
The only reason we haven't come for an override
Yeah.
in the last 15 years, at least in the last 5, is because the revenues we were generating. Because if we went back to that, they would charge us about we got a verbal quote of I think $500,000 to be able to provide that same service here in Topsfield, a third party.
Okay.
We're now revenue positive $500,000. Now you take out the cost for the 4 firefighters, we save about $500,000, but the cost swing is about $1 million.
Okay, I can find that someplace on the website as well.
Probably not on the website per se, but we can have a conversation if you want to dig into the weeds.
Really, my problem is I really want to dig into the
Yeah,
numbers.
let's
on
make- let's-
everything, not just the fire department,
Let's make an
everything.
appointment. I love having these conversations so we can walk through these things.
If I can get this back on, I know there was another question or comment on.
So Janine Cunningham, 16 Town Hill Lane, and I have not been registered in Topsfield for town meetings since 2020, so I haven't seen all of the, or I haven't perused closely all of the warrants. We've had a tradition of doing, as you're speaking of, that we have a zero budget, like, within the tax levy, and then a contingent budget for an override. That's what you're talking about doing at special town meetings. The thing I want to push back on a little bit is that I feel like we actually need budget C, not to be a negative Nelly, but we owe the money to Masco, barring huge surprises at Oxford and Middleton tonight. So we are committed to that. I feel, because if you put another question forward and people say no, which they have the ability and the right to do, we're looking at another special town meeting because we haven't come up with the funds.
So
we
this
can
is,
cut
if I can-
after it's appropriate and authorized. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
If I can jump in, this is why I wanted to say hyper-focus, that's not a ballot question. That is something we absolutely have to have the answer to, and.
Well, I'm just, like, mechanism wise, I'm saying if that is true.
Yes.
We do need to kind of, because it influences, I guess, what question 1 is, almost if you, just going forward, what that means, but if that's not.
You're right.
Okay.
I'd like to make just one point.
Absolutely.
You were asked twice, the term net with the fire department position was asked, and that meant salary plus benefits. One thing I've learned is the word transparency. And so what the net savings is more than $60,000. You finally said that will come out of your insurance budget.
So that's one of the proposed cuts now in the override, is that there's 2 family plans coming out. This is one of them.
Okay. So that when we talk
Haven't
about.
gotten there yet, but yes.
When we talk about savings, there's more than $60,000 coming out. Thank you. But diverting it doesn't help everybody understand what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano.
Point, Greg, thank you.
Okay, so we haven't gotten yet, so we're still on option 1, which we're saying the firefighter, you're gonna recommend take out. I heard you say something about the planner.
No, planning support,
Planning support, which is,
$23,000.
and that leaves the planning board and zoning board with their needs. Where?
It would still maintain a 19-hour position within the operating budget, which is what was requested from the planning board chair and the ZBA, and which I agree is necessary to maintain our level services in support of those 2 very critical activities for the town.
19-hour grade 5, grade 7, grade 7. Okay.
So we eliminate the 15-hour grade 5.
Yeah, can I just speak to that for a second? I would be really upset if we tried to go below that, because if you compare the same efforts that are performed for the Conservation Commission, they have 1.5 support people, or virtually 1.5. The same thing for the Board of Health, they have close to 1.5 people. This would be half a person, or almost half a person for both of 2 boards. So I think that the 19 hours is extraordinarily efficient.
I appreciate that, Bob, but nobody asked to go below that yet.
Go below that.
Yeah, nobody did it yet.
So with the, excuse me, the position that you are looking not to include, but the position that you are looking to include, would they also do the administrative work for ZBA and planning?
Unlikely that I can find somebody at the requested amount of hours and grade that would have that capabilities, but we would certainly try to see if they could perform the grade 5 duties as part of their regular responsibilities as well. If not, we'll try to find some other solution to try to support them. I think ultimately, and to Mr. Metz's point, I think this is sort of the bare minimum of what we want to be able to provide the supports at.
Okay.
Through the chair, could I be recognized for 1 second?
Yes, who's that? Mr. Brophy.
Yeah, I apologize. I was trying not to interrupt anybody, but I wanted to just kind of circle back to the gentlelady who was speaking on the fire department thing. All the standards that you're going to be looking for are going to be in the NFPA standards. And I can tell you that, as somebody who works pretty closely with this stuff, even this 3rd position still doesn't get us to the point that meets the standard. The standard for any engine company, any ladder company that's going to respond to a call is a minimum of 4 personnel. That's what the standard is to ensure not only the firefighter safety, but to ensure that we're actually able to effectively operate to save lives and to conserve property. As far as cost savings too, there's a couple other cost savings that aren't often taken into account. So there's an organization called the ISO, right? And basically what the ISO is, it rates every individual municipality based off of their fire coverage. And what that rating does is adjusts how much it costs to insure your house. So the better the ISO rating, the less you're going to pay in home insurance. So there are some indirect cost savings that increasing staffing does for the individual ratepayer. So, but as far as these standards, there's a lot of standards that are available openly through the NFPA, which I would recommend anybody who has an actual question read the standards. I think you would be incredibly surprised how even with this 3rd person, we're still going to fall pretty low below what the acceptable standard is. And the reality is that we need to take into account, I'm not trying to basically make this more than it is, but as a resident with the taxes that we pay, If you have a fire in your house, if you have medical emergency, you know, if you're having a heart attack or a stroke, I think the expectation is that when you call 911, somebody shows up. The reality is, at the current staffing levels, there are serious concerns that if you call 911, there will be nobody to respond.
And
adding this third position is essential to ensure that we actually have a chance of doing our job and delivering the service that is expected by the ratepayers.
I appreciate the passion and the information. Right now, though, I definitely encourage you to disseminate that. Right now, I do want to keep the conversation moving forward, though.
So
That's fine, I got it out there, that's all that matters.
What I'm saying is, don't let that be the only time that information gets out there.
So, Mr. Chair, where we're at right now with these two modifications, and these are again and again, we made cuts in the operating budget in other places before we finalized it that covered these costs in other departments and other places from the first version of the budget. But this is, again, additional services we're providing. We'll back these two out. It's the first level of places where we want to cut if we so choose to do. Like at the end, we could say put them back in or put them in as a tiered approach.
So would you like me to keep one of these slides for you? Yeah, you can leave it like that.
So right now, just so we're at, I would almost say there's, so we're at 177 is the target number. If we decide we want to back this into like a second override, certainly something we consider, but the recommendation now is to just take these off consideration.
So then that moves the bookend in from 260 to 177. 177.
Yeah. And
with some discussion to have, there was a request to have the 60 on there still again, but
so
right now 177.
So if we're
good. All right. Mm-hmm.
So those are right. Finance team said that's perceived or is new services, right? So that's something we took back. Anything else that we want to talk about? The next level would be anything that we're trying to replenish back to where we have been in the past, because like I said, the last few years we've cut into the health line items, health insurance line items. We've also cut into the highway department's line items last year.
But just speaking of that, sorry to interrupt. Is it 177 or is it 177 minus the insurance associated with the firefighter position?
That's where I'm coming up with the insurance if we wanted to eliminate that. No, insurance is not an exact one-for-one calculation, okay. And I'll explain that for a second. So when I started 6 years ago, the standard, and it's pretty consistent in a lot of municipalities, that they build some level of contingency on health insurance because they're big swings. There was 4 family plans and 2 individuals at the time. That was the standard that we had used in our operating budget for years. Over the last 3 years, we've reduced that in order to get to balance, to the point where budget to actuals, again, that's sometimes the free cash where we generate the free cash, has gone from 82% 5 years ago down to 99.7% budget to actuals last year. We actually had to transfer in to get us over the finish line. Usually we're using that funds to replenish at STM budget transfers. And so the idea here is we got lucky. We had people who either came off or stayed on. The net effect was that we were able to not need any contingency health insurance programs, but every year that can flex. A couple people could come on. People come off, you never know, and it could flex, but that's such a big swing that we always want to have a little bit extra in that line item. So what we had built into the override was to get us back to where we were, which was 4 and 2 plans. What we were proposing is to take, and this is where it's either we keep it on the override for the town to decide, we want to replenish and get back to where we were as part of this. If this is the override number, that's one of the items I would say to consider. I'm going to use a different color, just so we can sort of identify that differently. So if we took out healthcare plans, we would be at another 54. This could be in that override as itemized in attachment A for people to consider. Or if we want to reduce that preemptively, we could do that. But that's something I would say is definitely needs to be on the table, because it's not going to help us going forward, but it's something where we'd go back to where we've been, even though it was incredibly tight last year. As your finance director did not feel comfortable recommending a budget without trying to replenish that.
Can I say then, if the firefighter is off, we should reduce that by at least 1? Correct. That, I think, would be the starting point.
So typically we could, one for one, absolutely. I would say though that firefighter, no firefighter, we usually have 4 and 2 anyway, so we're just getting back up to that standard. It's not necessarily tied directly, but it's built in for that situation.
Okay.
So we could reduce it by one of these or put them both into consideration. The other one, and this somewhat pains me because I made a promise to the DPW director a year ago, would be to consider keep as one of the items that we would put as part of our attachment A override, $20,000 for road, bridge, and sidewalk. That's half of what we cut last year, half of what we cut last year almost, out of the highway department's budget. We try to break it into 2 years. I told the superintendent we were gonna do it this year, then we said we'd do half, and now I'm saying now we can't do anything. We'll hopefully come back next year if we can and replenish that line item. We have had some success with Chapter 90 numbers. Some of the work that Mr. Wilds has done and his team to get roads that are approved roads here that MassDOT didn't account for. We all know that, but I'll reiterate so everybody can hear it. There was a number of roads that were not submitted to the state MassDOT, and we weren't getting credit. When we get our Chapter 90, which is money for our roads, bridges, and sidewalks, to us, they calculate how many miles of roads you have, and if you don't have roads that are accepted locally that have been sent to the state, we don't get credit for it, so we get less money. So Mr. Wilds and his team worked the last 2.5 years to make sure every single road, looking back into documents from the 1600s, literally, and we just approved last week 9 roads that are gonna be accepted on top of that, but we were able to submit to the state. I don't know if they've approved it yet, but we get 20-something roads, right?
Yes.
We have about 20 roads that we sent in that were not submitted previously during this audit we did. This is extra. This is beyond the regular work, and we appreciate that what you did, Mr. Wilds. That'll generate some more revenue. The idea here, though, is that we have some additional revenue. That line item used to be 6 figures. It was down to 70, I think 5 last year. We cut that in half, trying to replenish it slowly. But that is if we're doing it by buckets, this is one where we go back down to where we've already cut. Same thing like the health insurance. So these are the two that are sort of us. We tried to propose to get back up to the standard that we've been at. The idea here is we would identify that for the override, and people would be able to say, if the override's 177, we agree we should be at that standard. We agree we should be at that standard. And then the next items that we list under there, we would put on for consideration for the override. Or if the board so chose, we could eliminate these right off the top and reduce the override ask.
I'm gonna go
Is,
here.
is it 4 and 2 for the town and 4 and 2 for the elementary schools, or is it 4 and 2 combined?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's me. Is it 4 and 2 for the town and 4 and 2 for the elementary schools, or is it 4 and 2 total?
Total,
Okay.
and we
Yeah.
do cover
Right, so
the
that's
we
exactly.
do cover the teachers and the staff at the school, so that there's a lot of flexibility when people come in or come out. Different circumstances of people's lives, they go on, they come off. But
So if somebody
we
has a
cover
baby, they might move
There you
from
go.
a single plan to a family plan.
You got it. And that's where
we're
the
moving.
A spouse loses a job, that's a
and that's
life
happened.
event.
And unfortunately, we've seen that happen. So
So hopefully that answers Ms. Bermudez's question as well. Yes, people can come and go off of the health.
we're mandated by law to provide the health insurance. And when life circumstances change, that is a trigger for us to be able to, we have to, we're mandated to be able to put them on or take them off.
Or take them off.
Modifications to the plan usually happens during open enrollment, which is happening right now during the month of May.
Okay,
Can I
so,
ask a question on the highway department budget?
yes, Mr. Brophy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna keep you busy here today. I believe the director of the highway department was discussing a position. Is that position currently funded under the current budget and it just hasn't been filled? Or is that a discussion of adding a new position?
Yes, Mr. Watts.
Mr. Wolfie, it's actually a current position that has always been there. The gentleman that came to work for us has gone back to the private sector. He couldn't afford to continue on at that pay that we offer. So it's always been a position funded. It's just open right now. It's a crucial one to us to do the things that we do with the over 120 lane miles and everything else with the 3 departments that we do have to run.
It's currently budgeted.
Yes.
It's currently budgeted.
It was a hiring freeze, Mr. Brophy. When the results of last week, we implemented a hiring freeze, and unfortunately, the timing for Mr. Wilds was that they had just posted the position, so we pulled it back for the time being to see what the results of the next handful of weeks are.
Okay.
And whereas that was already appropriated, I believe it was like a mid-year exit of that particular individual, the remaining funds that were for that position, are they gonna go back to the general funds? Or are they gonna be reappropriated and pushed forward to the next fiscal year?
They'll fall.
You know, I completely understand that, you know, especially in today's day and age, right? Class B drivers are very hard to come by, especially with the money that's being paid to the private sector. But if it's more essential strictly for the 3 months of the snow and ice, if we run into a jam, are we gonna be able to, you know, hire a subcontractor to cover that route?
So we're fortunate, after talking with Mr. Wilds, we're out of the most critical time, I would call it, which is when the snow season is.
Might snow again.
It could. But he's one of the 4 that do the 4 segments of town. The hope is that after the next 5-6 weeks, everything settles down, we can move forward. But if we're talking about, for instance, Masconomet and Essex tax override failing and the town absorbing it, we'd have to have an honest conversation about somebody who's not, a position that's currently not opening and what we do with it versus hiring that and laying somebody else off, which was kind of a discussion we had earlier with the firefighter position and the highway. So it's kind of a balancing act of timing, priorities, and actually what we have for tools to work with.
If I can, Kevin, with that, Mr. Brophy, it's also, yes, I keep harping on the snow and ice. That position is crucial. He left was our key operator to run our heavy equipment most every day in jobs that we do. So it is not just those 3 months. It is a 12-month period where I still need that person to run the department effectively. And we quite often cross over to help the park and cemetery because that 3-man, if you will, that department right now struggles to keep up and we have to switch over to try to help out.
Okay. So to recap then, get us over the next hurdle. Where that brings us is we bookended 0177, identified another 60 or 74. So that brings us to 103.
We're layering in how we get to the 177. If that's what we propose, the board can decide if they want to preemptively cut one of these. But if say that's the overhead starting point for suggestion that the finance team's making. Select board, absolutely play with it. Say if there's a priority, you want to add something and just eliminate it, or you want to add something back out of that. It's their discretion. But let's start with the 177. We take the new ask out. Now we're just talking about replenishment. We added 15,000 for snow and ice. We've been, as we know, the average of the last 5 years has been $257,000. We haven't increased our snow and ice budget since 2019, and
that was only by $1,000.
Right, and we're currently around $215,000 in our budget for snow and ice. Last 4 of the 5 years, we've been over by more than $230,000 over that period. For those 4 years, we were over. We made the conscious decision not to put, because we don't have that much capacity, and we're trying to work that number we asked the town down. We would probably put more than 15 in there if it was a year where we could absorb it, if health insurance and pensions weren't so great and we could absorb it. We still felt the need based on this past year to put something in there, so we're not asking again for help at town meeting if we avoid it. So we put 15, but this is growing the budget by 15, even though it's been quite some time. And cost has gone up significantly greater than 2.5% when it comes to salary, wages, for outside contractors especially, and the cost of ice and salt, ice melt and sand. So we would suggest to go back to the budget we had with the full understanding that we're probably going to be looking for a FinCom reserve transfer or an STM budget transfer when we see everybody next year.
So if I can summarize, it's we drop that budget knowing that we can cover it with free cash if we have it or a reserve fund if we have to. That's an if. But recognize that our average spend has been what, 250-ish, 255-ish over the last 5 years. And we've only budgeted for 215. So we have the mechanism to do that. It's probably gonna be necessary.
So the next one, I'm gonna start talking about actual cuts now because there isn't anything else in our budget that we try to replenish. And so what we're looking at that is going to be $9,000 on the library. They're still above Mars with this reduction, but that's a reduction that I talked with the library director on.
Can you explain Mars for people who don't know what that means?
So the libraries have a lot of legislation that, in essence, I would say, protects the library from budget cuts. And we're mandated by law to have a certain growth on average over 3 years, year over year over year, on their budget, and you can't go below that. And so right now we have averaged slightly ahead of that number the last few years. This would get us close to it, still above the minimum. The Mars is a floor of what you can do for an operating budget in total. We're still slightly above that minimum threshold, but it does get us down pretty close to what that looks like. We're about 19,000 in the good in our budget to what the minimum Mars number is. And we haven't had anything in the library budget. It's just, again, cost of stuff going up and absorbing those costs within the operating budget to date.
So if I heard you right, we can only cut $9,000 before we start hitting that Mars
We have
limit.
some more room in there, and that's where if Masco Essex Tech fails, there'll be another round of cuts probably at the library. And we're looking at things that are non-people, if we can avoid it, like that's our priority. I think we can manage potentially with that, but this 9 would not be for people. This would be under their maintenance line and get them back to what they had a handful of years ago. Because it just backtracks where we've been. And they usually use all the maintenance because they do great work keeping their building up and running, but there's been a lot of maintenance because I think the renovations were 28 years ago. And 30 years is usually a pretty good lifespan before things start breaking on us again. So we use it often.
Wait, sorry, question. So you're saying the $9,000 is coming out of their maintenance line item?
That's the intent.
Okay, so no interruption in service?
Unless something breaks.
No, I mean library hours.
We can have those conversations, but that's the intention. That's the intention. If we do further cuts, then it's kind of open-ended what we're gonna look at. And then the next one is,
Question about the library.
Would the library trust funds be able to close any gap? Correct me if I'm wrong, on an operating budget, no.
correct. We cannot use maintenance funds or the trust funds to cover these types of things. The operating budget usually does not have anything except for building envelope, staff and wages. We rely on the trust funds and the Friends of the Library to supplement programming, to supplement the books, the magazines.
And that's because those are very specifically written trust funds. One of them in particular was for purchase of mystery books, for example. Not just books, mystery books. Okay, sorry, is that good?
That's good, yeah.
You guys, seriously chime in, and Bob, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I do, before we get to the end of the list and close the subject, I was talking to Kevin. My understanding is there were 4 family policies and 2 individual policies that didn't have employees attached to them. They were into a safety factor to provide a conservative protection in case 1 or 2 people or a few people switched into a plan or switched to upgrade a plan. In a more comfortable fiscal environment, I think that's fine, amounting to 3 or 4% of the insurance budget. But in this environment, I think it's unconscionable to carry anything close to that level. And I would suggest to have a safety factor of 1 family plan, 1 individual plan, unless the historical data over the last 5 years shows that typically we get 2, 3, 4 people switching into plans or more expensive plans. And so I would like to ask Kevin, over the last 5 years, what have we had each year in terms of people taking moving up to a family plan or into a family plan or moving into an individual plan during the year that wasn't anticipated at the time of the budget?
So we've every year because of the cuts that we made to the insurance line items, in our operating budget, which is the second highest line item in our operating budget besides the actual personnel numbers. We went from about 84, 85, 86% actuals to budget percentage. Each year it's progressively gone down. I had that document earlier yesterday. We've had a lot of documents flying around, look at the numbers to where we are right now. But I can tell you last year we had to make a transfer into another account into the health insurance to cover that line item so we weren't in the red. We can't be in the red in any of our department budgets. And so a line item that's typically been used to make sure we had contingency plans, but also has been a place where we've had it hasn't been as tight. If I have one family come on over, I'm significantly over our budget just by one over. I know that we do cover the teachers, and while you were speaking, Mr. Metz, there was there's people, things in people's personal lives that are happening soon. I want to be careful with words, but that would probably potentially have an effect on the health insurance number that could create more policy needs, I guess, in the next year. I don't know.
We have a young female staff.
So anyway, so yes, you're right. I think we cut that down. The initial intent was replenishment. Obviously, we're making an adjustment here under the circumstances to itemize that out as a place where if the town elects not to vote for another override, or if the board decides to eliminate this before we even put it on the override, it's up there for discussion and obviously places for us to consider to try to get to that 177 number.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it off. I would shrink it. And I think honestly, 177 is too high to take into the special town meeting.
So the next item I have is, and this one's, I'm just gonna say, this one is one that we spent some real time on, but it's really, with this number, again, there's not any growth in our operating budget, be a reduction of the salary and wages. And I'm not gonna identify any particular cost center within our budgets at this time. We're working through that and what that would look like, but we would say that about 15,000, which once we get to attachment A, we'll have to identify what that is, would be able to pull out of our costs associated with our proposed budget.
My thought is, as soon as we start talking to people, that's almost like the next.
I don't have anywhere else to go. We're into people now. I can't get this balance.
I know, and we'll have to because we're still not at zero.
And we still have a ways to go. So the other one, I know, member Mercia Link actually had proposed a couple ideas. I know one in particular, when we spoke last night, I added it to with our finance team. We talked about it, and it's okay. I'll put that up on the board as well. We're comfortable with putting that on.
Okay, great.
And I think, I don't know what the dollar amount you were thinking, but there was one for conferences and activities like that within the select board's budget. It's meant for reimbursements for Mass Municipal Association conferences or other trainings for the board, typically the board. And there was a recommendation that be reduced. I know the one, if you want to tell me what your number was. What were you thinking?
I did, well, I rounded it based on what I know the MMA conferences. My point is that I'm willing to pay for it on my own. I don't need the town to pay for it. So my suggestion was just remove that dollar amount from the budget, which I had as.
We put 3,000 or 2,000.
I think it was something like that. 1 minute, sorry.
I think we'll leave just a little bit on there just in case.
Yeah.
Something comes up to where it's
I had
mandated.
1,500, but that was based on 350 times.
I think we talked about 2,000. Can you
Yeah.
double check that?
2 would be fine.
Are you comfortable with that? 15's fine too, if you prefer that.
No, I did math behind the scenes, so if you have, Amanda will have better data than I do.
We'll do 2 and we'll round down or up as needed as we finalize our numbers.
That looks good.
Is that, you comfortable with that one? Okay.
That's it, 2,000?
She wasn't offering to have you pay for your attendance as well.
So, I just remind everyone, we had a really short window to try to figure this out. We will be thoughtful in what this looks like. We have $62,000 left to get to that number of 177. The next level are much deeper. It's like I said, it's potentially further cuts within the library, possibly in the COA. There's places, not that there's a lot of room there in that particular, but those budgets, but let me just pull my list up real quick. There's things that we can pull from different line items.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Junior Police Academy, we have 26 kids signed up for June. We're punting on that for immediate, and it's $11,000 savings though, because it's our team that's doing it. So we would look to not just postpone it now, but cancel that event if that's something that the board wanted to get on board with.
How many kids?
There's 26 youth that have signed up for the police academy.
How much money in that is this fiscal year, right?
It'd be both. It's budgeted for next year and it's in this year's budget as well.
They usually have that
How much money?
They usually have that police academy over the summertime, and it's 11,000.
11,000.
And then we're also reductions of legal and professional services by 5,000 each.
Yeah.
Is there a difference, Kevin, between, or maybe Amanda, SSP legal fees and, and SSP legal services?
It's just legal. Yeah, there's only one. There's professional services and then there's legal.
Okay. 12405-53030?
Yep, that's just SSP legal costs. So like KP.
Cause I saw legal services and legal fee, maybe I just wrote it wrong, I wrote it
No,
wrong.
but it's just
Okay.
one, yeah.
Thank you.
So we're at 41,000 now. Oh, composting.
I also took out 5,000 under legal, 5,000 under professional services, and 6,000 under composting. So composting would be we're ceasing our compost operations. And that's a net benefit of $6,000 because that's what our cost is to provide that service to the community.
So we talked about that last night.
Can I just add something there? So it's a lost revenue of 11,000 with the savings offsetting that. So just so you guys know, we would also see a reduction on our local receipts.
Right.
From that.
But the net is
$6,000.
Net is 6,000.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to clarify because that shows up on the tax recap
Super.
as well.
Yep.
So it gets us about $35,000 to close that gap. I don't know how we would do this, but we would probably look to potentially change our VSO services that we just agreed to. And find a less expensive option. I don't just transitioned
and we have a contract that we signed.
Does that go through 6:30 or does that go through?
I'd have to double check what the agreement states, but I haven't had the capacity to look at that contract, but I think that the end result would be is that I know there's other services that we could probably solicit and probably find a little bit of savings. It wouldn't be the white glove service or even the amount of resources that we'll be able to provide our veterans per se. Don't love this, don't like this, don't want this, but we're talking about where can we go, it's up for conversation. And then there's, so as you all know, we've made some significant gains on our fields. Clock Park in particular, Pie Brook as well. We had an irrigation system up at Pie Brook. It's on a well, so the electricity cost is what we have annually around that to get the fields. I mean, they're little Fenways right now. It's actually really, credit to Mr. Wilds and his team and the TAA for their partnership on that, but there's some savings in modifying our irrigation patterns with electricity. Again, the water's free because it's on a well. There's also the cost for porta potties at the fields. It's real. It costs us $8,000 annually to put the porta potties out at different locations, but it's something where during COVID we pulled them back. And we got a lot of complaints about it, but it's something that we could consider putting out on the table as well. And then field treatments, we do put overseeding on. We do the things that almost every other community does to keep our fields looking the way they are. Those would have to be things that we would consider modifying going forward as well. We estimate that's about a $23,000 adjustment on that. We made such great gains on it. It's painful to even think about some of these things, but a lot of meetings, a lot of hard work by a lot of volunteers to get to this. But if we're talking about it, we got to put it on the board. So this would be a $23,000 annual savings for fields. And that gets us pretty much to $12,000.
Are you including eliminating all irrigation and field treatments?
That's the full boat, right?
So, okay, so just so it's 8,000 for the portos and 17,000 to completely eliminate field treatments altogether.
So 25.
So 25.
25.
We had half when we were discussing, so I just wasn't sure. Half of the field treatments.
And I know we got an earful when we had that drought a couple years ago about the condition of those fields.
Yep.
Okay, again, we're putting everything, just to stress, we are putting everything out there. These are not all good or fun ideas, we are just getting the, what can we do?
I don't know exactly what we're cutting here. Assessor, clerk, and the COA. 1 to 2,000, call it. I know their budgets are razor thin. I'm not sure where we would do from their other section on those.
When I look through the line items on the omnibus, I did not see much there, so.
There isn't. We're gonna find it, and we'll probably go over budget and look for an STM transfer. Because there's no services we can really truly reduce without. There's no services there we can reduce. It's more of just like the cost for paper and posters, things we have to do. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Does your 23 change to 25 based on what Amanda just said? 17 plus 8?
I don't know.
Based on what Gary just said, keep it at 23 because I guess the 8,000 includes the electricity for the building as well.
So operating costs for the park and cemetery down there was 10 2 years ago, it's down to 7,500. If we take that, I'd have to do an average of what our electricity costs are, at least to cover that.
Yeah.
So keep it 23 instead of 6.
It brings us down to 10 grand.
Sorry.
12.
We'll find 10 in public safety.
Oh, no, 10, yep, now I got you.
Oh, it's in Excel.
Yeah. Other thoughts, suggestions? I know, Bob, you've spent a lot of time looking at this as well. Anything we didn't cover that you thought should be on the table?
Well, I was looking for things that were 20, 50, or 1,000 or more. I wasn't looking at $2,000 items.
Budget's tight.
And I want to do more work with Kevin on these health insurance contingent plans that we don't have employees for. We're just being prudent. But I don't have any thoughts. Yeah, I'm digging into that a little. Any thoughts? I guess there's two actually on health. Can we do a rolling increase in the share paid by employees within our union contracts, or is that contractually ruled out?
Town pays 2/3
And
of
the
the,
second thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
town pays 2/3 of the cost for health insurance plans. That's mandated by both collective bargaining agreements and Mass General Law. You can go up and contribute more, but to ask the employee to contribute more has a very long process that it can be done. It's just incredibly difficult to do, and it doesn't happen. It goes the other way. A lot of towns have done that. They've increased their contribution on behalf of the employees. Fortunately, because of our budgetary constraints, we haven't been able to, and nor have we. Nor were we considering it. We just held the line at the percentage. If we wanted to ask the employee to pay more, my understanding it's a very lengthy and cumbersome process that might not result in a positive result. All depends how we work that through.
What was number 2, Mr. Metz?
Well, the other one was, in some healthcare plans, you have not just family and individual, you have 3 categories, which would be like family married, just 2 adults, married or partner adults, and children. And that cost is typically somewhere in between the family and the individual. Is there any chance of doing something like that?
So, Mr. Metz, I've had that conversation with Maya and our reps. There's been one community that's done in the last 5 years within the Maya network. They had a good financial year. They wanted to do something for the employees, and what ended up happening is it cost them significant money because people in the in-between actually started enrolling in the program more than not, and we cover a lot, not just town employees, but the schools. What happens is our 2/3 contribution increases significantly because tons more people come onto our plan. As much as we'd like to do it, it's financially, especially in these conversations sitting here right now, it's a net negative if we're trying to save. It costs the town a significant amount of money to do it. It's a good thing for the employee.
Comment here?
I am sure you've thought of this.
I accept that. That sounds logical.
All right, we're going to the audience.
I'm sure you've thought of this, but I've sat through. Is there a way to incentivize non-union employees to take a partner's health insurance plan with a salary bump of a little bit?
So we've talked about with some of the negotiations with the unions about they've come to us with that because usually what happens
Non-union. Is
or
there anyone at town hall?
anybody, if you offer for the union, you have to offer non-union. It would be universal. The problem that happens is that there's not a really good way to find out how many people that incentive would pull people off the insurance program, and so you're kind of creating some estimates on it. I'm afraid on some initial, because we looked at it, that it could have. I'm risk averse, and I think there could be a real looking at sort of where we are. It could have a financial impact negatively because we don't see a lot of people. We have to pay the people that already are not on that amount of money. Plus, you have to offset that by the amount of people coming off. And yeah, and they're already off if they're looking for a plan for 2 people. Anyway, so I don't know if a couple thousand is going to incentivize them enough.
Can I speak on that real quick?
I'm going to recognize Mr. Link had his hand up.
Yeah, so I was just trying to think of that, so someone wants to come on for the individual plus spouse plan that currently isn't on a plan within the town.
They can't, that doesn't exist currently.
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
It's a flat
But then they do have the option to come on the family plan, but they decide not to do that.
So right now, we offer individual
And
family, nothing in between.
So they're not opting to come under the family, but if you offer the individual
plus one,
all of a sudden there's gonna be.
We're gonna have a wave of people coming onto our health insurance. And ultimately what happened is we're paying 2/3 of the cost of anybody who comes onto our health plan. We're gonna have a significant increase on cost.
So if they're
for
on
the town.
someone like their spouse's plan,
Yep.
something like that.
Or they're one.
And then they find
One
that.
and one. Yep.
One and one.
That's how it is, yep.
Oh, I see.
Each on their own.
Oh, okay, alright.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Brophy? I think that was Mr. Brophy.
I was thinking it's.
Yeah, that's correct. So, I actually just finished,
That's
the tech negotiations, so the PEC negotiations in my community.
Family plan.
In my community, we have an 80-20 split. We actually have a kick-out clause that brings us back to 85-15. So a couple of things on that. You do have to negotiate that. It is a process, and as it was said, it can come out unfavorably because all the unions have to agree with that through the bargaining process. On the +1 plan that you're discussing, we looked at that as well, and what ends up happening is while the +1 plan, which would be, you know, the employee plus their spouse, while that is going to be less than a family plan, the result ends up being that the cost of the family plan increases so much that it offsets any gains you might see. And that's direct from Maya and Blue Cross Blue Shield, who we negotiate with.
Thank you.
That's all I got for it.
I have one suggestion.
Yes, Ms. Lee?
So we talked about this a little bit last night, so far we've hit everything, things that I had on my list, and I have one more. We talked about it, but I'm gonna bring it back up. I wanna talk robotic lawnmowers. So we've got 9 of them. We used 4 last year. We outsourced the cemetery, Pine Grove, for $42,000 annually. If we got all 9 of those up and running, I realize that contract is paid for with the perpetual care cemetery fund.
Transferred into the budget to offset it.
Why couldn't we pay Gary's line item for that as opposed to an external? Like if we got all of the 9 robotic lawnmowers up and running and could redeploy some of your folks up to cemetery, couldn't we redirect that perpetual care fund to your budget line item to pay for it?
So the sorry, Kevin, perpetual care is separate from the town's operating budget. That money we appropriate, it is in there. It should probably be out of the operating budget, much like the gas and diesel is. Because if you take that out, my operating budget is half of that, what is actually left for the fiscal year. That comes from the interest on the principal, but it's not town budget. I don't believe, and Amanda's not here, I don't think legally you can do that.
Well, what she's suggesting is that you get hired
Yes.
to do the work of mowing.
But yes, but the problem, I didn't realize.
Thank you.
We bought one, which was with a gift. The rest have been given to us in an earmark from Senator Tarr. We don't have enough places for those to go that make that difference. I understand where you're going. We don't have that kind of, these things can only do a certain amount. Where we have now, and there's the 4 sitting there that are backups because they were gifts to the town. They're not being used. There's only so many places that they can be used. We're not saving enough time of the 3 people. I have, we still have currently 13 funerals on the board. I have 3 employees and we have the 100 and so acres to maintain. I don't know that there's enough of that savings there.
So the cost to do the cemetery, as you know, is offset in its entirety by non-general fund costs. It's just in our operating budget. And so ultimately, and I think I follow what you're doing, but I think ultimately that cost to the town to maintain the cemetery, which used to be our burden, which was more expensive for us to do that, and is now outside of the operating budget. It's just a line item there, but it doesn't actually impact, like if we got rid of mowing the cemetery its entirety, we wouldn't do that, but if we did.
No, yeah, I'm not suggesting
No.
that.
It wouldn't have, that wouldn't help us solve for the budget crisis right now. If you turn the money kind of on its head, like I think you're suggesting you use it, the perpetual care in other ways,
Yes.
I don't think that's gonna necessarily net out in a savings at the end of the day. But we can look at it further.
That's interesting to me, but we pay an outside contractor $42,000. I'm just saying, if instead Gary's team was the outside contractor, we could pay them instead. And then your budget would be reduced.
And put the lawnmowers to use.
Yeah, but there's 2 questions. Can we do that? And would it actually make the savings using the robotic lawnmowers?
Short of one more being put, which is going to come next to the school and the town hall here in the side yard, the other spots are manual labor. I don't know where we can make that much of a savings, to be quite honest. And to be quite honest, if we're looking at that, my 3 departments are already being decimated with funds to come back. You've got 23,000. I no longer will have parks money I'll no longer have irrigation money. All the good work we've done in the last 5 years to go from a hayfield to actual playable grass and safety for the kids. So currently as is constituted, my department is taking a huge hit, and I have no idea how we would come back from that. But I get it, it may not be, anything we can do about it, but right now, there's a lot coming from Park, Highway, and Cemetery.
Mr. Link? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Ms. Fox had her hand up,
So getting a little bit further top level, the way that we provided the guideline was to say we were gonna take 11% increase for health insurance. And the amount of the actual budget is, in excess of that is $168,000. So since that's one of the big drivers of all this, and I understand that we, in communicating with the public who has to vote, we do need excess, it seems like we need excess capacity that we don't have. So I would think that it would be at least 168,000 because that's in excess of the 11% that we said it was gonna drive.
Right on, Heidi.
So we're close at that point.
That's where you take out those two positions that were like the next, you're right back to square one and with that increase in health
So it
insurance.
seems like if that's what you put the override, let's, as an example, that would be the override amount. As long as you can explain to the public what they would lose if they didn't pass that override, then you're being as transparent as possible so that people understand that we're not just asking for this for all these other things, we're asking to cover health insurance that's in excess of 11%. So that's just, again, it's a top line thing that we're talking to the public about. 260 didn't fly, 317 didn't fly. What is it that we need the capacity for, but we understand if you don't want to pay for it, then you're identifying what would be cut from that point.
Right, exactly, so just to that point, so that's not, doesn't surprise, right? That was the amount the insurance was, and we're at 177. And then just to kind of regroup where we are, so these are proposed, not necessarily cuts preemptively, but the board can do so if you want to lower that 177. These are just replenishment of things we've cut over the last year. Or things that we added back in this year, I should say.
That's FY 26 level service.
26 level service, correct, well, 25, we cut these last year, we're trying to replenish it for 27.
Yeah.
So we down a year just because we were hoping that, we knew we were coming in, we talked about it last year, a year ago this time, we think, unless health insurance is a miracle, and it wasn't, we're coming in probably for something, 100, 200,000, maybe a little bit more, and that's where we landed, we forecast. These three are, we can go back to levels, back to that last year and get through, but just again, these cuts impact our free cash number at the end of the day. And or if we have more people coming onto the health insurance, or if there's an issue with Gary's department, they need that number there. This right here, I drew a little line here because I think we feel these are cuts. These are cuts. These are library cuts, hours reductions for staff. That's what that is. And this is conferences. This we felt, generally comfortable with. No, I shouldn't say comfortable with. We recognize that there needs to be cuts. These are the first layer of cuts that we have. The second is looking at these items here, legal services, professional services. We're tight on these, but we can adjust these if we need to down. The Junior Police Academy, it's a great public service. It's community policing is something the chief and I talked about 6 years ago when I hired him. And he's done an amazing job, him and his team, the captain, everybody, in delivering that. And these are the things that matter, but we're in a situation and that's where we're gonna have to go to. Composting, I mean, that's something people rely on in town too. These are things where it's gonna, I think you're gonna feel some of that hurt, the people outside. Fields. Sorry, Gary. Yeah. And then to spread the wealth, we're gonna find, $25 here, $50 there in some of these smaller budgets, because that's what we're gonna have to do. And then public safety, so it's spreading the wealth across multiple places, or the hurt, I guess you could say, across multiple places.
I think
to get us to that zero.
There might be one more. We did the LED lights. We dropped the budget by about $5,000. I believe Mr. Larson's analysis looked like the consumption should go down closer to 40% or 50%. It's a large number decrease. Now rates go up. I get that. But we might be able to decrease that budget. We were being conservative because we don't know, it's the first year with LED lights. Maybe we can drop that again. And if we're wrong though, then we're
on the board.
National Grid had said that it was a $12,000 savings that
And
they.
you dropped it 5, correct? So there's another like 5,000 in there that.
or 7. We're counting pennies here.
Okay, 7. I put it down here, but any of this can trade up and down, right? Like, just so we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
So-
then Mr. Link had a comment, and then Mr. Elwell. He's busy. Let's go to Mr. Elwell.
All right, so two comments. First, FinCom, again, said recommended guidelines. We set a separate guideline for health insurance to this point. A few years ago, it was a slightly different select board, but we kind of got together and did this practice of transferring to where we were assigning guidelines to each of the areas for the explicit reason of allowing each of those areas and their associated boards to be accountable for their budgets and to give the town the ability to support or not support that budget. And so this is the reasoning that we did this. Insurance, we did the last few years because of the growth, we pulled that out as a standalone number and gave it, this year was 11% that we set as a target, which is why everybody else is below 2.5, because that just imputed across everything. But to your point, that is, put it up there, yeah, ultimately that doesn't, it's no different than Masco or something, if that doesn't get approved, it falls back on the town. But that is explicitly how we set up a few years ago, why we moved to this process of having separate guidelines and accountability for each of those. Love what we're doing here, and if you look down that list, almost everything there is an actual, real cut or something. My fear is that when we start transitioning from cuts to assumptions about budgets, and where it's an assumption of what the budget will be for next year, we gotta be careful about that slope, because we can suddenly find ourselves a year from right now and having wiped out the FinCom reserve, and we're in a deficit situation.
Absolutely.
So I think that's when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, with the exception of snow and ice, to me, because we've experienced that one seems a little bit of a problem, concern to me, because it's an assumption, but we have flexibility there. But if you go down that whole list, every one of those is an actual name cut, maybe not legal, I mean, that's up to you, until you get to the second page, well into the second page. You know, something's being sacrificed.
And we still have, so, thank you, and that's stuff that, I just wanna say too, you know, the chair of the finance committee and the rest of the finance committee have done amazing work the entire cycle, and I know you had a meeting earlier and you're joining us now, appreciate that. But they've been great since Thursday, to having the conversations, make sure we line up what we need to do process-wise so that we all are having the conversations. I appreciate y'all being here. And just echo the same way we think about it on the finance team. I know the FinCom's thinking about the moment, but also what does the next year and the next year look like? I can't emphasize enough, we're a AAA rated bonded community in the moment. If we liquidate our potential and free cash generation, and we're going out to take out debt already approved for the water main and water tank this fall, and they look at where we are from a financial standpoint, they will look and the potential for our bond rating to be deregulated. If we get a lower bond rating, that's a higher interest rate, that's that money that's gonna cost the town ultimately on the debt service side of it as well.
And again, we're throwing things up here, they're ideas, they're not necessarily good ideas and not necessarily what the board wants to do because of reasons like this. I was gonna go to Mr. Link before, and then Ms. King, and then over here.
Oh, I was just, I hate to go back to it. Just mechanically, I mean, since the finance committee's here, that 42,000 for cemetery, so if it's just for transparency, if it's on the omnibus, it looks like it's a budget item. I guess mechanically, when it flows through, it does not get to an appropriation or assessed to taxes. I missed, like, that 42,000 is sitting on the omnibus.
But we do a I'm out.
So
We all,
Okay,
okay, that's,
so
yeah.
there's two pieces, there's two questions on that. So what happens is, on the omnibus, there's two lines. There's one line that is, we're paying somebody for it. And there's another line of, we're taking out of this savings account.
Okay.
Right, so we're taking 42 out of a fund, out of the perpetual fund.
Yeah.
As a memo adjustment to give it over to the third party.
Yeah.
What the question was, and back here was, okay, well, what if instead we gave that money to you?
Yeah.
Could that help you somehow?
Yeah.
And you could cover those services. I mean, obviously, that's what we did 2 years ago, the reverse of that, and it looked like it worked well to do a third party rather than you having someone there full time.
It has, the department's staff of 3 for the entire town for maintenance. One person alone from April to November does nothing but field prep 5 days a week, the entire day long, basically running to keep up. And then the other 2 are left to do our maintenance around town, the lawns, the veteran green, the common, the police station, the town hall. And then the others have to take care of all work related to funerals. The outsourcing is just solely to cut the grass and string trim.
Thank you. Ms. King?
It's
Gustin.
Gustin.
Sorry.
That's okay. Kevin, sorry, as you go along, could you just do the math for us so we know how close we're getting to 0?
We're at -7.
Yes.
See,
So
this-
like 233 minus 10 is 223, minus 27 would be,
So Amanda's gonna keep score.
okay.
So we'll
just
give you guys
helpful
updates
visual.
as we go. So this is 10 from the library,
Oh, I
27
see.
You know, like, just
27
keep the running total.
to Mr. Metz's point in the second round. So this, let's, I kind of reach
Can we,
six.
can we focus on the first round? I still feel like our job has to be, what are we gonna put on the ballot?
Attachment A, reductions.
Yeah.
So what I would, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, just kind of get through this and then we can sort of trade things up or add things to the list and then we can decide what goes. This is just a preliminary sort of like.
But
if
before
wanna
we
spread the
keep
wealth.
going, there were more comments. Sorry, I didn't mean to shut you down.
No, it's okay, I can do it on my own,
We can
that's okay.
keep score. There was another comment and then,
Just as a townsperson who doesn't know anything about this Mars library, that you can't reduce, I kind of scratch my head why we're spending $546,000 in salaries and wages for the library, which is even more than the $444,000 we pay for the highway department. So I don't understand, what is this requirement that we can't reduce in the library? Because that seems to me, we have people clearing the roads, right? And we spend less money on their salaries than we do the people in the library. Can we look at that?
So just a point well taken. So Mars is basically a calculation that it's literally the one thing in our operating budget that the state controls and says you can't cut this. The reason for that is I think my understanding, haven't done my own homework, but I've been told many years ago when budgets got tight, the first thing to go was the libraries. So they cut staff, they cut they cut that service. They gutted it. And there was people, lobbyists, passionate people around libraries who went to the state house and said, we gotta protect this so it never happens again. So they create basically a floor, what's called Mars. I don't know actually what it stands for, but it stands for something that basically represents.
municipal appropriation requirement.
Thank you. I probably could have figured it out if I wanted to, but we're live on camera, so I wasn't gonna wing it.
I also.
We're a team, we got this. So basically Mars, it creates that floor. So every year it creeps along, right? And so I think my understanding it's a 3-year rolling average though of what the appropriations have been previously. That you have to make sure when you contribute that much money to that department. Now, the library through its commissioners that are elected and the library director decides that they want to reprioritize some of those funds towards other places. They certainly can, but at the same time, there is a collective bargaining agreement for the employees over there that we're bound to as well. We can certainly make adjustments within the framework of that agreement if we wanted to. But honestly, we have a phenomenal library that so many people take advantage of in this community. I've had some conversations with the current chair. I think she's no longer the chair as of an hour ago, but transition time of year, right? New elections. And the director multiple times in the last 36 hours. And, we're doing everything we can to hold the line. And like I said, I put library up there, another 10, it keeps us within the line. It's gonna be up to them to deliver what they think those reductions, if we need to, look like at the end of the day. I don't know if that helped, Tony?
It does, but then I look at the state, and I say, how can you require a town to spend X amount of money on something and you're not giving them funding towards it?
They do it all over the place,
So-
right?
So there is, I mean, technically, we could not fund it, but then we can't go take our library cards don't work and we can't exchange with
With
any other library in the state.
So we're basically funding a whole library system now.
Well, we're paying our share
Okay.
of the library system is how I would respectfully say it.
Okay.
You know, if we drove ours down to nothing and then we went and used everyone else's, is that really fair?
No.
Technically, you know, but the thing is, Mars says if you do it, you become decertified. And if you're decertified, you are no longer part of the collective.
Okay, I'm gonna take one more and then ask we maybe keep going.
However, it's a high bar, but there are allowances in MAR when a town is under pressure and it cuts other things, that's the high bar, then you can cut down and not lose your MAR. I think it's appropriate to look at that, see if we have an answer, should somebody bring it up, because it should be probably brought up as we brought up here. But we should be aware that that's a part of the whole plan.
Yeah, you have to get a waiver, I think is what you're talking.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So this is lesson time for me.
No problem, it's gonna be for a while, it's okay.
I've gone through the budget, and I want explanations, or are they possibilities? So the category of longevity equates to about $15,000. I don't understand that, it seems like it's excess. Is there an explanation for that?
So longevity, I have negotiated out of a couple of our contracts in our negotiations, negotiable. Fire as an example, they no longer have longevity. We've also in my negotiations, we reduced the liability at the end of career. I know you're not asking about
Step
this.
back, the question is, what is it?
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
it's
Okay,
if
we're going
under
okay, got it.
contract, if you're there after 5 years or 8 years or 10 years, you are contractually obligated for.
So this
an
is-
extra
We
amount.
don't do steps. So a lot of communities, when they have a salary and wage, they have a grid.
Yeah.
Schools have it. It's basically a step. You get a column, then you get a step over time as you progress, just for being, if you're year over year, you get a percentage for being there on top of a COLA. So it compounds the increases. The town, we negotiated those out and we don't have that anywhere on the town side any longer.
But you have raises.
We do, but they're a fraction of what you would get in historical times when you had the step and.
Are they represented in the private sector?
Are the raises represented private sector? I know that we've done 3 salary surveys in the last 5 years. We attempt to reach the 65th percentile of our competitors based on a third-party review of 15 communities that we need to review. We go through the process to see what the market is in the public sector, and then we make adjustments accordingly if we need to. And ultimately, and that's on the non-union contracts. On the union contracts, we get the other contracts, we look and see what the increases are. We look what's happening at the state level with mediation arbitration, and all the contracts are public, and we can see what the wage over 3 years have increased. And we try to, and we've done really well in doing fair contracts, but ones that are not outpacing other communities. We have had, at times, one-time adjustments to catch up when we've fallen behind. But most of those communities have these steps. And so longevity, to get back full circle, is one of the ways Topsfield thanks the people who've been employed for longer than, say, 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20. By doing that, instead of, in a way, it's in place of that step. However, those existed in addition to the steps. Just maintain that piece, remove the step piece.
So that's not a negotiable thing, we think?
It always is. I've negotiated out of 2 of the contracts already.
But I mean, as far as
Not today.
negotiable within this budget?
Not in this budget.
Okay.
And that's because the contracts are set.
Contracts are set.
I think this was discussed and it was agreed not to, but in a year where there's an override, I think when you're increasing something, that needs to be looked at. The veterans consultant went up
You want me to jump in there? We had the privilege of having a member of our town serve that role for the last 12 years, 10 or 12 years, and never asked for additional monies. He is retired 3 times. This time it's stuck. And we went and looked at all of our options, and this was the best, the board felt the best option for the money. Part of the reason that that increase is so large is because our old VSO officer was well underpaid for what the services he was providing.
This one I understand I'm probably wrong on, but the fire department pickup truck, $100,000.
So one-time money versus ongoing operations, 2 different buckets. Working with the FinCom, working with our department heads, we come up with a 5-year capital plan. And basically, capital's funded through free cash allocations to town meeting, so that's already been applied. It will not help us for fixing this problem. Different bucket of money.
Right. Sorry. Admin car allowance, $3,000.
It's what my predecessor had, and when I started, it was basically the select board at the time said, we're just gonna keep the contract the same, and I said, fine.
Just looking at taking Gary's employee away, 3,000 seems excessive for the type of job, the proximity.
My contract's up in here, we can talk about that.
Is that contracted or is that on the omnibus part of the?
It's in the contract. It's in the contract.
Contract, okay.
I know, like I said, it's a lesson. Probably same thing, police cruiser, is there efficiencies in the police cruiser, but you're gonna tell me that's already spent?
One-time funds versus recurring.
Unfilled positions that falls upon Gary, I understand that. And these are silly, but I think they ought to be brought to the attention of the taxpayer. Police chief education stipend. He's retiring in 3 years, what does he have to learn at this point? And also his paramedic certification. Has he ever responded to an emergency? Okay.
Do you want me to do one at a time, or you want me to take them together?
They're kind of both the same thing.
Sure. So, first of all, we have 2 phenomenal chiefs, Chief Collins Brown and Chief Hovey. Like me, they're on a professional contract. And when we negotiate our contract renewals, we look at, again, market comps. That's our foothold. They're not just arbitrary in how we go about our business. And we want to make sure, again, that we maintain the talent, and we want to make sure we do it in a fair way around what the market comps are. I can say this, I know you called out Chief Hovey, but I'm going to refer to both chiefs. They're both 24/7, and they put in an incredible amount of hours outside of what's typically what a chief would do in any other town, because we are light, and they care about their people in this community tremendously. And when there's a call for service, I can promise you, I've seen it dozens of times over the years. First one out of the seat when the ring comes in is Chief Collins Brown responding, because we only have 2 firefighters on, and sometimes one of them's tied up or both. Most times she's the first, many times she's the first on the scene, and the same thing for Chief Hovey. We have 2 police officers typically on any given shift. If something's going sideways, the chief's gonna be responding, possibly the captain as well. And all of the events that we do, these wonderful events, typically you'd be pulling in overtime for the police department to be there to protect it. It's usually the captain and the chief are not in the union, not subject to overtime, and not subject to details, who do it because it's part of their job. So when you look at particular stipends, when you look at, so you look at part of the specific stipends that we called out for that. Part of it is that market conditions, when we look at the other chiefs' contracts and some of the benefits outside of just compensation, we want to reward those when they have the proper certifications to perform CPR as a paramedic, or reward them if they have a master's degree. I don't know what the other stipend is, 3, I think, for the 2 of them. Chief's emergency management director for the town. There's a stipend associated with that as well. So these are things that are added benefits similar to what the union contracts get for people who have similar certifications, education. It aligns with what's within the public safety departments, what they get. And so we said, let's call it out, because these guys are responding just sometimes like the guys on the street are.
Not to belabor the issue, but these are part of the things that start increasing our tax base. So you're giving away my money for your negotiations.
Well, I would say it's a team effort. We work
And-
closely in executive session as we negotiate all of these
Understood.
contracts.
And to be clear, the board approves the contracts,
Understood.
Kevin negotiates them, we have a lot of back and forth. I just wanna make sure he is not giving away anyone's
Sorry.
money.
More of a learning process.
Yes, Mr. Granat, and then I'll ask we move on.
I got two
Oh,
more.
sorry, he's got two more.
sorry.
Sorry.
This, I will claim some sort of intellectual ignorance. The stormwater professional services. I was on the planning board, we never had that. If any engineering came through, it was either certified by an engineer, or if it was a developer, we engaged a consultant at the cost of the developer. Is that, and I'm probably gonna tell me
It's
Martha wants
MS4.
that.
It's MS4. So MS4 is it's probably in the last decade, it was initiated by Mass DEP. It requires us to submit every year certain standards and elements that we have to do as a town to make sure that proper stormwater is existing. So we're mandated by Mass DEP. We mentioned earlier about some of the standards. We're mandated to provide this service. We do not have an engineer on the staff, nor will we. We don't have a planner.
I get you off, just because this, I'm learning this.
Yep, I'm just trying to give you some
It's
color.
not proposed development dependent. You're telling me this is something
It's
that
mandated by state. We wouldn't pay it unless trust me, you don't want to pay that 25,000.
two more light things, and I know you're gonna tell me no, the bike path shed. Is there a way, I think if I were involved, I would have done that as a donation, because it's not a town entity, it's not part of our property.
But it's a capital expense, so that's one of those one times.
It's unfortunate, because I could have, through my connections, could have had that donated.
Hold on.
I'm not guaranteeing it, but
Mr.
it's
Serino,
an avenue.
let me just add some to that. So we have applied for a grant with Department of Recreation for the full cost of that. We won't hear if we're successful for another couple of months. The intent is that we will actually get that grant if we're fortunate enough to get it, and we will not use that money for that purpose. In addition to that, we actually have two people in town who've donated their professional services, an architect and a construction manager, who are managing and designing the shed at no cost, is my understanding, just the cost of the product.
My point.
So we have actually done exactly what you are suggesting, that we find alternative ways to fund it.
But for the moment, you're taking $45,000 out of us. You gotta realize the perception.
I'm gonna ask that we stay focused on the operating budget though.
Thank you.
But
Well,
keep
you
in
have-
mind
the town
that if we
did-
need
the
something
town did
built,
vote it.
we might have something built too.
You had one more?
No, that was it.
That was it. Okay, now to Mr. Metz. I know it's late. I appreciate your time. Mr. Metz?
Yeah, I have a,
Oh, I
I
thought it
have
was
a couple
Bryce.
things. One, we have capital expenditures in the Masco operating budget for the first time, just for the simplicity of combining them. If we come back with that override, is it possible?
No. That's yours.
Somebody else talking? Is it possible to take the capital expenses that are in the Masco override and pay for those in free cash and reduce the size of the override?
I'll remind you, Bob.
And then I got another one.
Sorry, Bob, I'll remind you and then I'll turn to the finance chair, Bob. The reason we did that had to do with some E&D, and the way it was explained to us by Masco is we're just given a bill and splitting it out, operating versus capital is a little bit different, but for the details, I'll turn to Mr. Elwell.
We would argue it's not capital, it's maintenance. This is the third year of an ongoing amount of money every year that was then quoted in the meetings as saying, yeah, expect this going forward as well.
Right.
So at that point, it's no longer capital items. You know, it was never capital. The last 2 years before this, it was, hey, tide us over till we can do this, enhance this fix of the roof and everything else. We need $1.1 million or so to do that over 2 years. And they got written into that line item. And then this year, it got brought back again. Hence,
Okay,
So we negotiate 2 years.
so you're saying that, the pieces that we've called capital is not really capital?
It's not.
The-
Correct.
Okay, so that answers that. The other thing is, can we have, an itemized list tomorrow morning sent out of the layer 1 and the layer 2 discussion for tonight.
Tomorrow morning?
It's thirdly, it's
Thank you, Jesus.
in the time zone that I'm in, it's 1:15. So I'm gonna be signing off here in the next few minutes.
You've stayed longer than I could have hoped for, Bob. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Metz.
And we had a comment, I think,
Yes, so based on
associated.
this,
Yeah.
so both Middleton and Boxford are paying for the Masco capital out of free cash. They're not including in the operating override. So I think that's a choice. If we did that, it wouldn't be against any laws or anything, and it would get us through this year.
It wouldn't get us through the year completely. It would
Not true, but it would
reduce
take
the.
$100K out of this whole discussion, and our two sister towns are doing it that way. So let's see, as we did the past couple of years. So I know and I understand the theoretical things, but if we're talking brass tackle, brass knuckles, that's what we could do.
Yes, Ms. Fox.
So I have a little bit of a plan that I'd like to share with you, and it's more detailed, so I'll just give it to you. But I think, again, the concern is people turn down $233,000, right? And so how do we present to the community that we need this capacity, but people are concerned about it compounding year after year? So these things that are not really capital, in that we really shouldn't be using our free cash for this. What about if we thought about a capital exclusion for those things that were determined as capital, which means that it's on the warrant, it's on the ballot as a capital exclusion that can be turned up or down. If it fails, then we have to absorb it some other way. But it's a way of identifying to the public that this is capacity that we as a town should not absorb. But it's not gonna go forward in next year as a compounded item. And I think it's still gonna be $233,000, but broken down a little bit differently. And that's just a suggestion that, I'd like you to look at, and it's a mechanism as opposed to saying we're not gonna tax you for this.
It's not capital.
So one of
Didn't Shay just say it wasn't capital?
So last year we had a similar thing with the curriculum, and we were
Right.
not, I can't remember what it was.
Right,
But
there's
there
not
was
a
a
mechanism
legal
for it.
reason that we were not allowed to do it. There was a definition, and we need to figure out what that is.
Yes.
Maybe this is different, to your
Right,
point,
because
maybe this is different, but
the ADA repairs and the,
Yeah.
and the fields.
Yeah, I asked both the our auditors, our external auditors, as well as the DOR, what a definition of capital exclusion would be, and if we could include the curriculum, and you guys are talking about the iPads. And both of them consistently said it should be used for something of like a vehicle or something like tangible in that way, not curriculum or not iPads, as that they would not consider that capital exclusion.
Absolutely, the Chromebooks would not be part of that, that would be part of a regular, Prop 2.5 override. I'm talking about, of the 105, that 41 of it is for the Chromebooks and 64 of it would be for the ADA and the sports fields, so I'm wondering if that's capital.
I think that would be a stronger argument.
So just a little more history. So Masco approached us 3 years ago and said we have this $1.2 million miscellaneous capital ask, and the 3 town administrators meeting with the administration at Masco said, listen, we can't afford all that in a free cash, and nor should we necessarily absorb it. You're in a district, you have an E&D, you guys should be putting it towards self-contained, right? But we said, you know what? We have enough free cash right now, this is like a one time, we'll do it over 2 years, break it up. We had the free cash at the time. We struggled last year to meet our requirement, but we did what we said we were gonna do. It was a down year on free cash last year, we had 1.8 certified. And that was one of the priorities that we do what we said we were gonna do. But we did say it's a 2 year, and then it goes back into your operations and the assessment that you provide us with. They didn't necessarily ask us to do it free cash or do it by raising more money. They just said, this is your assessment, you now need to do it. We are reverting back now after the 2 year sort of agreement to having them self-contained to cover that cost. So using the free cash is something we've talked about, like as the finance team has, and with working with the chair of the finance committee and the finance committee as a whole. It's certainly worth putting on the table, but I think for a lot of the reasons shared, I think it would be inconsistent using the town's free cash to cover that gap when it's gonna be a year over year over year over year. And that number, because it's a giant entity, Masco, could be significant draws on our free cash. And if we're limiting our budgets by cutting everything in the free cash we're gonna create, we're gonna find ourselves in maybe a bad situation in the future by giving that free cash over there rather than to our stabilizations or into keeping it on the books.
I just want to time check. Because we've been here for, well, we'll be here as long as we need to. I personally cannot be here forever. And we'll still have quorum as long as we have 3 members. Mr. Metz is turning into a pumpkin as well. How are we closing this out?
So here's where we're at. So we can't solve.
Can I offer one more idea, please?
Yeah, we're looking for ideas right now.
Before we wrap up. And that is, we have approximately $250,000 more than the minimum balance of free cash that's recommended by the state DOR, as I understand it. And if we came from this in the other direction, still maintaining an excess above the minimum balance that's instructed by the DOR, we took $100,000 of the free cash and added it to reducing the tax rate. Could be coming at the idea of an override from the opposite direction.
You would be kicking the can down the road a year, basically.
But my
Mr. Chair,
first
did you wanna
question on
come?
that is it DOR policy or Topsfield policy?
Financial policies.
It's our policies, but the problem is the problem is the rating agencies and everyone goes and looks back. It's a look back. So when they go in and they look at, if we changed our policy, which is something we could do, between FinCom and Select Board, we could change the policy. Frankly, you all could change the policy. It's just best practice to include the FinCom. But if you do that, when you go before the bond agency, they're not gonna look and say, are you up to your policy? They're gonna go, did you change your policy? Have there been any changes? No, okay, are you up to your policy? So as soon as you see a change, it starts to put a flashlight on it. So the use of, there's an added piece, if we go back to Masco just for 1 second. Yes, they came with what for us was $170,000 or so of free cash. I mean, of what they classified capital. They also took $470,000 or almost the exact same amount of money out of their free cash by lowering their minimum. So they are respectfully, Masco is starting next year, $460,000 in the hole. Because they can't drop it any further. They actually changed their policy and dropped it. And they can't do that anymore because they are now at the state minimum. So you could look at it as we're doing the capital, or frankly, when we were having this discussion back and forth, my perspective was no, fine, the capitals, they paid for their capital out of free cash. And we're paying for their bump in their operating expense of that 160. So just constructively look at the two different.
Okay.
So in kind of maybe just point of clarity where we're at the moment, because
And next steps and
yeah. So
maybe
we
target we can wrap up.
Like I said, we
unless
spent
the board wants to keep going. Go ahead.
So we spent obviously a lot of time, the finance team digging into this, select boards, finance committee. Day one, right, of actually putting stuff down on paper. I just wanna emphasize, these are the ideas that we've come up with in the moment to try to spread it around as much as we could. But, after you get about that much in, maybe there, I redrew the line here, by the way. You start reducing some of the, talk about hours and services and things like that, as the chair said when he came in, these are cuts. They're legitimate cuts. They try to meet our need. We added 4 others here. I haven't mentioned it, so I'll just mention this. It's under the 233, but I would suggest if the select board or anyone else has more suggestions, we can layer it in, like electric savings. That's a great one. And I'd rather put that in here and maybe put some of that fields or some of the people things that we talked about back off the table. But I'll mention the library as a round 2, talking with the library, the Mars is 19K above. we want to go right to the line, there's another 10 in there. I'm not suggesting that we do that preemptively. In my conversations with the library, it's been step 1, step 2 if we need to, if that fails. But it's something to consider. Health insurance reduction in the second round, another plan potentially. Board of Health vaccinations, the Board of Health's the only department we haven't talked about here. Don't love taking away money for vaccinations necessarily, but it's something we can put in there. And then obviously electricity. Is there any more from the select board that they want to put up here? I know, Mr. Serino, you said yours, Mr. Metz mentioned his. Is there, Ms. Mercer Link, I know you mentioned yours. I don't know if Mr. Chair, you, or Mr. Ruggles, if you have anything else you want to put on the board for us to take back as a finance team tomorrow morning and consider before we put it back to you guys tomorrow, what the list would look like.
You're gonna put this on a spreadsheet and maybe column it for priority?
Yeah, today's put it on the board and then we'll put it nice and easy for you to read.
And then I think our work, if we circle back, we don't have a lot of time.
Right.
For that ballot, our goal tomorrow, hopefully, is that we have numbers. So again, we started with this bookend. Everybody agrees we have to have a 0 number. That is not on the ballot. That will be on the warrant. That will be the base budget or however we decide to call it. The bookending, we said 260. Bob is saying no, 177. So we'll have to decide what that is. And then my preference, but that's to be decided by the board, is that we do have something in the middle, so that the override will be, say it's the, I don't know, get to here, and that funds X, Y, and Z, or get to here, and that covers all the health insurance and keeps stuff the way it was. That's my preference, but I think tomorrow, today we've had a lot of fantastic ideas. Fantastic is not the right word in my opinion, I guess it depends on what side you're coming from. But tomorrow our goal hopefully is to have that language, and really the language will be pretty well set out, it's what number are we going to put on.
We need to come to a number tomorrow, just expectation setting for tomorrow. There's 2 things we need to make sure we do for tomorrow. One is gonna be that we have finalized and vote dates for our STM and election. And the 2 is gonna be, let me know what the number is that I plug into the ballot question, because that tomorrow I need to hand deliver that over to the clerk. So she can stamp it and we have the 35-day clock to get to that election.
Do we have to do that by 5 p.m.? Or is it
As long as it's before midnight.
timestamp? Okay,
We'll make sure somebody's there. We're all hands on deck right now.
okay.
Sorry.
So just before you end, if we can have a few minutes to figure out what we can do to help. But just before, I felt like we're starting to end, so before you do, can you have a moment? So
After we close the meeting?
Before the meeting closes.
Before the meeting closes.
Just before.
Okay, no problem.
Last thing, Mr. Chair.
One last thing.
186,
Yeah.
question mark. That's where we're talking about some real deep I mean, none of these are things that we're comfortable with reducing services. But that's still almost $200,000 if the 233 fails, the Masco, Essex Tech, on top of whatever we come in with, assuming it's 177. So, any more ideas people wanna send me tonight, tomorrow morning, please do.
Yeah. That goes for everybody as well? like I
Yeah, it's a
said?
general, if anyone from the public wants to send me an email or stop by tomorrow morning, and you got a couple ideas, I mean, we're tuned in, but we'll take anything and everything, we're in, we gotta figure this thing out, we can bring it over the finish line.
All right.
So, FinCom's technically, our whole role is supposed to be to advise once you create a budget. And what we're trying to do is be helpful and to do that, so, but that's for us to take your lead. We're gonna meet briefly just to go over this, actually technically, we're in a meeting session, but, we'll take your feedback direction, we can join you tomorrow, we can wait till Thursday, we can do whatever. Or if you wanna talk with it separately, we can talk and figure that out and then do it, but, I mean, ultimately, our responsibility starts when you have something in front of us. And I don't wanna we don't wanna step in front of you unless we're being helpful.
One place I think it is helpful, you understand the rules very, very well, the ins and outs. I know I would love at least more of a 10, 15 minute explanation of this capital exclusion It's a lot to digest right now. Mr. Hartunian, were there any other agenda items?
No, I don't believe anything that we need to address today. Things for tomorrow. Thank you for everybody's input and conversation.
Okay, then, for the board, we've got homework, go back, as soon as you get these numbers, stare at them, come up with your suggestions. Again, we appreciate you guys are here, you're drinking from the fire hose, this is hitting the ground faster than running. Mr. Metz is gone, I wanted to thank him for being on.
2 in the
It's
morning.
very late for him, and everybody who came out, this is the most well-attended select board meeting, I think, sorry, work session, by far, work session that I think I have ever been part of, so thank you for coming out and pass the word along that if people do have concerns, I love Facebook, said no one, the best way to get in touch with us is definitely email or phone calls. I mean, Facebook is out on a personal basis, not regularly monitored by me. I'm hyper attuned to it right now, but I cannot promise that that is the best way to communicate with us. In fact, I'll say it is not the best way to communicate with us. We're trying to keep our ear to the ground to what the community wants, and that's one avenue, but it is not the best way. Okay. That's it?
Action items, we'll make sure tomorrow, we get the ballot questions to you. I know the lawyer's working on, those right now. And we'll get, there is a draft warrant, STM warrant on board docs, and anyone else can read it, showing a template for what our warrant could start looking like as well.
But to that point, no one freak out, it's all the same language as last time, so we're not asking, I can't say because we haven't voted on it, I do not anticipate that the number will remain $317,000, which is currently on there, right?
So anything, I'm gonna say it's very loud and clear.
Very loud.
Anything highlighted in yellow is just old language that I know we have to come back and update. So if you're reading it and you're like, to the chair's point, he didn't change anything, it is simply a placeholder until we finalize, that's all it is. And anything you see in a red line.
Someone will say it anyways.
On Facebook.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was
To adjourn.
one other thing,
Yes.
oh,
That
yeah,
wasn't me.
no, that's it. I need, any motions?
Motion to adjourn?
So the way this works. Hey, they get.
I remember that.
Yes,
I
there you
remember
go.
that.
Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much to everyone.
That was good.